Well, hello everybody, and welcome back once again on a Tuesday evening, afternoon, morning, or potentially middle of the night to the Ventauri Pro Series here on F125 with, of course, the F126 DLC. We are here for the third round of the first ever season of this series, and we blast across the globe once more. We've had two very exciting races so far: Australia a couple of weeks ago, China last week, and now we head to a venue as old as Formula One itself. It is, of course, the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, which will be very interesting as it has become known and coined by Fernando Alonso as a glorified recharging station. Can't wait for that through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. In the commentary box, once again, commandeering commentary corner, Tom Squared. We've slithered our way in once again. The virus continues to extend. TK Tom Knight, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. You picture us as very snake-like, and unfortunately no Meraki in sight to make those references. But I'm very good, as you said. Third time we're racing this series. Third different continent for our drivers as well to take part in. As you mentioned, two fantastic racetracks that gave us good racing. I'm hopeful for Silverstone. Maybe as a bit of an optimist, I'm not sure how it's going to go. But qualifying as a minimum will be super close. I'm almost certain of that one.
Yeah, these guys have done so many laps around Silverstone that, you know it like the back of your hand. We're expecting the gaps to be really, really tight, milliseconds separating people going out in qualifying sessions and make it through to the next part. And I think we're expecting as well somewhat of a return to the kind of racing we saw in Australia a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think it's not going to be that necessarily flip-flop racing that we saw out in China with the long straights and the straight line mode activations, but a very similar approach to what we may traditionally have seen in F1 esports in the past, where it is that calm before the storm as we head to the to the pit stop stage, and after that all hell will break loose because every driver will be burning as much battery as they possibly can.
Opening couple of laps going to be very interesting as well. But we have quite a lot to get through before we reach the race start. Of course, full qualifying session, Q1, Q2, Q3, split up ever so nicely as it has been, and then a 50% race will follow in due course. But firstly, let's have a look at the calendar, see where we've been and where we're going to be heading over the next couple of weeks, split into three separate blocks. We're halfway through the first block, Silverstone this week, then we head to the Red Bull Ring in a week's time before the first of our 2 one-week breaks. We come back for Suzuka on the 18th of August, Spa, Sakir, and he said Suzuka again, and then the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, before we head for our final 4-race run that's going to be interesting, I think is fair to say, with the circuits on offer there. Jeddah, Mexico City, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi to round out season 1. Such a good mix of circuits, and what we've seen so far, TK, from Australia and from China, what places that we're heading could maybe throw up a bit of a surprise, maybe ones that we weren't expecting to be good, but might turn out to be a bit of a banger.
It's going to be a really interesting one. I've seen races now at Japan, Belgium, some fantastic racing there. I'm yet to see something at Jeddah, which will be one, I think, to keep an eye out for all of our drivers. Are we sure we're going to Bahrain for the Bahrain Grand Prix? Are we sure it's not going to be at Malaysia?
I'm fairly sure because I don't think EA Sports are going to add it into the game, even though we've been asking for some time. Glossing over that one, though, the Bahrain Grand Prix. What's it called? It's some stupid name, isn't it? The Golf Bahrain Grand Prix in Malaysia.
In Malaysia, yeah. So
yeah,
it's called
that. That there were,
it's a little bit of history.
You can tell that there were long meetings.
Yes.
Long meetings to come up with that name.
There's a reason it's called that as well, because from what I understand, the Bahrainis? I can't remember what the full proper name of them is.
Bahrainis.
Yeah. They're paying for the Grand Prix. They're paying to host it in Malaysia, which is why Malaysia kind of fell off the calendar because they couldn't afford to run it anymore. So Bahrain is footing the bill. It's happening in Malaysia. I don't think anyone's mad about that because we lose Bahrain, which is an okay circuit at the best of times, and we head to Malaysia, which I really hope performs well in this regulation of cars because otherwise it could almost certainly cause us never to go back there for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, we're all hoping it goes well. TK, by the way, can you just bring the tyres up very quickly for us to have a look at?
I can't bring the tyres up yet.
No tyres, but we're going to look at the driver lineup. And it's fairly similar to what we've seen in the last couple of weeks. Alejandro Loera at Red Bull jumping back in after missing the action a week ago in China. And Laia Tomasetto as well in the Audi jumping in too. Last week's winner, as I try and find them on the list, Angelo Di Tenzio, was very impressive last week. Really strong performance. Luca Rapassa has been a little bit up and down. Second in the championship. Championship leader Tycho Hardy in the Racing Bulls, joined by Florian Fanselter. No longer, or we're still not seeing Sergio Sobrino, who was here in round 1, picked up the win in round number 1, and we haven't seen him since.
Unfortunately not. We're looking forward to his return, and as Chaz just rightly points out, it's actually not Angelo racing, it's his sister Angela D'Ortenzio. taking part in tonight's proceedings, so maybe look for a name change on the leaderboard. I promise you it's probably not there. But again, a very strong lineup heading into round 3 as we head to Silverstone, the Earl Grey of British motorsport. There is very much a lot to look forward to. And should we, just before we get to qualifying, because they are already doing Inters runs at the moment, let's have a look at how our drivers line up in terms of standing order.
So it is Tycho Hardy leading the way, a couple of points ahead of Luca Rapassa, and then Tamas Gal, who's very quietly, I think, gone about their business in the Cadillac. Angelo D'Ortenzio level with Joris Krozen, both on 31. Sergio Sabrina, winner in race number 1, not here this week, not here last week either. Then a bit of a gap back to Julian Klaffenbort. Liam Stevens, who did finish 4th on the road a week ago, but picked up a post-race penalty, fell a little bit back down the order. Tamas Kokeni, Francesco Lago, and Joe Murphy just nestled inside the top 11 there. But it's nice to see, TK, that we have got a big cluster of drivers right in the thick of the action. Yes, we've only had 2 rounds, but the top 6 still only covered by 9 points.
We absolutely do have a very close championship, and I think this will continue as we head on as well. But we have got drivers out setting unrepresentative lap times. They are mostly on the intermediates, and Will Gibson, here's the tyres for you. We'll get that nice and early out of the way. I'm sure they won't change in the slightest as we head through this qualifying session. And they've asked where Fabrizio Donoso is. He's there, making his way through Woodcote Corner.
In 7th position at the moment on those intermediate tyres, as we say. No pointers sometimes myself and TK are used to handing out for the driver fastest on the Inters. This is, of course, for the drivers trying to preserve the soft compound tyres. Remember, we have Q1, Q2 and Q3. Realistically, drivers are going to try and get through to Q3 with only 1 set of soft compound tyres, just so they've got a load saved up for that Q3 session. Just stack elect fastest on those Inters to start things off with a 131.4. But remember as well, we have got a lobby reset. You can see that we're in the F1 World cars at the moment. We will be switching back to the 26 cars when we head into the main race, hence the lobby reset, and hence as well the drivers get all their soft compound tyres back. And I think we've only seen 1 driver after that use the soft compound tyres in the race. As we watch Fabrizio Donoso around the final corner, Bison with the benchmark time of a 31.2, and Fabrizio Donoso just half a tenth down.
Purple final sector as well for Donoso, so looking impressive. And maybe if you ignore what Will Gibson's saying in chat, where he peaked at P7, because he'll be yelling, stop the count there. As Luca Rapassa does now go fastest at 131.123, which is easy as a BC for Rapassa here this afternoon. But I think props have to be given here, Tom, to all of the graphic designers for these various teams. They put on 1 livery for qualifying. They've then got about 10 hours to completely strip this down and put the proper liveries back on before we go racing. So a heartfelt job for them, and one that I feel does go underappreciated here in the Ventauri Pro Series.
Incredible work. Everybody, can you just put your hands together for the designers and the people that operate the paint guns to strip it of, what is it, the metallic paint that most of the drivers are running. We get the matte paint back on for some of the drivers and some of the teams out there at the moment. 5 lap times on the Inters so far. Luera jumping back in slowest of them so far in a 31.7. Here is Elia Tomasetto, first appearance of the season. I think we saw Tomasetto in one of the 2 social races back around about a month ago, heading down into Stoke Hall. We can see, thankfully, not going to hold our breath because it can disappear for the race, but the active aero, the straight line mode, is working as Tomasetto beats the quick retreat to the pit lane.
As does Larry Tilke as well. So 2 drivers not wanting to set representative lap times. They know they will be fairly short on time in the next few moments when everybody starts to make their parade out of pit lane on a fresh set of Pirelli tyres. There we go, lovely bit of alliteration for your Tuesday afternoon dwellings. It is a lovely sunny day at Silverstone, 35 degrees track temperature, 24 in the air, which is pretty slap bang accurate to actually the conditions that we do have in the UK at the moment, to see how we go through. Otis asking, is Fab flying? I mean, at the moment, he's 3rd fastest. I don't think it's going to stay that way, unfortunately.
Do you not have faith in Fabrizio Donoso? Don't look back to Australia, where we don't speak of what happened when we were in Australia with Fabrizio Donoso. I think a couple of disconnects made it look worse than it actually was. But back in the box seat for this evening's action, and a decent intermediate lap time. That's, of course, a very decent barometer as to how fast the drivers are on those Inters. We're nearly halfway through the session. Nobody has ventured out as yet on a set of the soft compound tyres, but we will just wait to see who gets out onto that red stripe rubber for the first time. Remember, if you haven't watched F1 a lot, 16 drivers through from the first part of qualifying. Then we go into the top 10 shootout, where we will decide the grid order for that top 10, using a bit of a Will Buxton quote.
The real question I've got, though, Tom, obviously Otis is in chat. Otis, when are we seeing you making a reserve appearance here in the Ventauri Pro Series? Before we get going, of course, for PCF1 and every other league that we won't name, but When are we seeing that reserve performance to put all these guys to shame for one evening? Not that I'm saying it couldn't happen, but of course it would be an interesting one to see. Callum does say hello and evening. That's evening. Welcome in. You've joined us right at the perfect time. As drivers have completed their intermediate laps, and we now are just awaiting the soft tyre runs to come to full flow.
Absolutely. Otis looking to put some manners potentially on all of the drivers in here. Luca Passa still fastest at the moment, 5 times on the Inters, and it's quite quiet at the moment, isn't it? Not a lot going on, a bit of a ghost town out on the circuit. But welcome into everybody that is here for the start of qualifying. Hopefully we're going to have some good action taking place as we have done for the past couple of weeks. Australia round 1, China round 2. Somebody has exited the pit lane. Who is it? I can't tell because we've got the F1 World Cars on, looking down the timing tower to see who it is. It is Jensen Rosen, first out on the circuit in what could be a Williams, potentially.
I'm going to make an assumption that it's a blue car. That does look like a Williams, you're right. And Wilkinson's asked my thoughts on WR Tier 1 on Wednesdays. For now, I'll leave that up in the... I mean, anything can change right up until the event goes live, right? So I'm not going to make speculation on anything that's going to happen around that, because it's neither my place nor valuable for the stream, and we can have a private conversation about that elsewhere. But for the time being, Tom, we'll focus on Jensen Rosen.
I've got a Jose Mourinho quote circling around in my head, if you know, you know. But Rosen out there on those soft compound tyres. First is going to attack the Silverstone circuit at 100% for qualifying. 1 top 16 heading through. And what we have seen, and we expect it to be very similar, especially around a circuit like this that the drivers know so well, those margins to get through are going to be incredibly tight. Remember last week, I think it was Alex Santana in 17th was knocked out, set the identical lap time to the driver that just squeezed through in P16. Might have been Lucas Beisner on that occasion. That is how tight it is, and a lot of it is going to be about timing when we are expecting to see it decided by milliseconds.
It is going to be very close, and I think we'll see a lot less of the ego retires that I think we saw in the first 2 rounds of the series, where Silverstone is going to be very close, especially in Q2. I think it's going to be even closer, and then we get to that final top 10 shootout. It is going to be a matter of maybe a paper's width that separates some drivers over the course of a lap. But Jensen Rosen making their way through Club Corner to start what will be the first flying run, or at least the first flying representative run of the afternoon. Well, it looks like they are just charging their battery. No, they are discharging. The rear lights have gone off, and in towards the opening sector goes Rosen.
Put the sponsors on the rear wing very nicely to mimic the Williams stuff. That Compass logo looking very similar to the Komatsu. Slightly wide of the apex into the first braking zone through Village. Loop it round through what is coincidentally also called the Loop, and powering out through Aintree we fly onto the Wellington Straight for the first time at full attack. And the first sector split for Jensen Rosen is going to be a 27.3 in and around the right ballpark right at the start of qualifying. Should be getting into the lower 27s, you would imagine, as the drivers get fully warmed up with the machinery and the track conditions. But a nice run there as well through Brooklands and Luffield. 2 corners that can feel quite clumsy when you get a boat full of understeer.
This we want to keep an eye on for Rosen through Copse. Very nicely handled. A little bit of lift to manage the car and manage the weight transfer, but does rather well into the recharge zone as Fernando Alonso dubbed it through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel Curve. And once again, just navigating that rather well. A little bit of lift at the exit of Beckett's, and up now the hanger straight towards Stowe Corner. Expected and does go purple in the first and the second sectors. First sector's already been taken away by Angelo's sister. That's Angela D'Ortenzio in 15th place at the moment. But it will be the fastest time for Jensen Rosen here, as one of the McLarens does move very lovingly out of the way.
Luca Passa getting out of the way as we head into the Vale chicane. And round in Club Corner comes Jensen Rosen, and the benchmark time with the softs will be a 26.5 for everybody else to chase.
Keep an eye on Angelo D'Ortenzio, who had purple sectors as well from Tycho Hardy. They're 8th fastest at the moment, yet to set a lap time on our board. Can the Scuderia Ferrari put a representative time on the board, which would give them a little bit of hope and a prayer as they make their way laterally into the end stages of this qualifying session? They do. It's a 1:26.315. Puts them just over 2/10 clear at the top. Lucas Beisner, another driver that is going quicker as I've pressed the wrong button, and that's Lucas Beisner there, making their way through Stowe. We have got more times coming across the board. Stephen Varso, one of those, is 26.560 for the Veloce Academy driver. Alejandro going second fastest, 26.466. Can Beisner go fastest? Purple in the middle sector. Oh, not quite. Equal lap times to Alejandro.
Ferrari 1-3 as things stand. Liam Stevens just 2 milliseconds down on that in P4. And then the championship leader, Tycho Hardy, slotting nicely into the top 5 on a 26.5. Here's Joris Krozen, who was fastest in all 3 qualifying sessions in Australia. Had a decent run in the race as well in China a week ago. Pace definitely there for Krozen as Tudor Presscan goes P8. And Harry Tulki into P9, 26.551. Joris Krozen to the front row. Second driver into the 26.3s. As just behind, that's Julian Klaffenborg. Knocked out in Q1 back in Australia, but has been very, very quick ever since. 6th fastest now, just ducking in behind Liam Stevens. And Fabrizio Donoso, you said that P7 was the highest he's going to be, looking very nicely back into that position with Luca Rapassa a little bit off the pace there, down in 14th.
It's almost as if the game knew where he was aiming and where he was trying to get to. Rapassa, as you said, 14th fastest. At the moment, Sean Stoss down in 22nd place, just making their way out the exit of the Luffield Brooklands complex and through Woodcote Corner on towards the old pit straight, looking to set down their first time in the afternoon. It was a 28.6 in the first sector. As you said earlier, would be hoping for something a little bit quicker if they were wanting to be competitive, but maybe they can find some magic through the second and the third. Be right on board. You can see them just recharging through Maggotts Beckett's and in towards Stowe before the Hanger Straight comes a calling, and so does Stowe Corner.
A long way down on the time, though, I think will be necessary there for Gabble. Didn't look particularly competitive, that sector split. Liam Stevens has retired, though, on that 26.468. So let's just bear that in mind. And John Stoss does go through Stowe and then jumps back into the pit. Still yet to see Florian Fanzelter either. 21st, 2 drivers without a time as things stand. Joris Krozen back into the pit lane as well. Slowest time at the moment is Elia Tomasetto on that 1:26.805. For my money, well, as Joris Krozen retires as well, with Liam Stevens jumping out of it, Klaffenborg doing the same. People thinking a 26.4 is going to be safe. 26 low 5, probably the times that those drivers that are on the bubble will be chasing as things stand. Bottom 6, Santana, Alves, Bohm, Tomasetto, and then Fanzelter and Chonstos. The bottom 2 still yet to get that time on the board.
Just waiting. We'll expect Alejandro and Lucas to probably retire as well. Fabrizio Donoso maybe fearing that they could be on and around that bubble. I think we always make this early prediction, Tom. Where do we think the cutoff is going to be as we head into the second qualifying session? If you're watching along in chat, let us know where you think that cutoff is inevitably going to be. I'd argue here mid 26.5s would be my early guesses, maybe low mid 26.5s.
I think you're playing with fire a little bit there. Tamas Kilkenny and Jensen Rosen. I'd be surprised if they retire. Obviously, those guys in the 6s have to go again. The likes of Luca Rapassa, Stakelek, both of whom were very quick over 1 lap in the first couple of races. Steven Varzo out there once again, 26.560. I think if you're in the 4s, I'm going to say you're going to be comfortable. Well, not comfortable. I think you will get through. Fabrizio Donoso, the only driver in the 26.4s and better not to retire just yet. And Tycho Hardy, championship leader, has bailed out on it on a 26.506.
Absolutely. Lots to still happen, of course. 2 minutes and 47 seconds left on our timekeeper's clock here in qualifying, at least for Q1. There are still 2 more qualifying sessions to come over the course of the afternoon. As it stands, you're right in saying Alex Santana, Nelson Alves, Conrad Bohm, Elia Tomasetto, Florian and Gabor Chonstos, the drivers that would be exiting should this be how it stays. We are expecting a few more to probably make it through on final runs, with the opportunity with the track ramping up. It hasn't really changed in temperature, but a little bit of rubber will have been laid down, which will allow our drivers to have just a little bit more grip, and sometimes that's all it takes.
Absolutely. Fabrizio Donoso has retired, so top 8 all happy with their lap times. Tudor Presscan, Luca Rapassa still in the pits for McLaren, along with Florian Fanzelter. Still yet to see Florian so far. I wonder if they're just going for the back of the grid start. We'll have to wait and see whether it's the one and done run. Still with about 30 seconds left in hand. If you are coming out, Florian, you've got to get your skates on, mate.
We'll keep an eye, and I think it doesn't look like there's any movement in pit road, which would indicate to me that Florian is not making their way out at the moment. So maybe, like you said, wanting to start from the back, maybe setting themselves a bit of a personal challenge. Who knows? As we do see Steven Varso, the first driver of this set of runs, to be going for a competitive lap time.
Barreling down the Wellington Straight. Do we find time in Sector 1? Low 27, the target, yes. 0.08 of a second found with how tightly congested that midfield is in particular. just small incremental gains can be worth gold dust, but the back of the car stepping out a little bit. First on the entry into Brooklands, and then just on the exit of Luffield as well. Tiny correction for Steven Varzo as we head down the short run into Copse Corner. Flat as you like, are we? Are we going to be lifting off very close to the track limits? Actually keeps it quite nicely inside the white lines as the McLaren gets out of the way. We head into the electric charge point, the recharging station. Maggots, Beckett and Chapel definitely not at full chat. Riding the curbs nicely through Chapel, and we are finding a decent chunk of time. This Steven Varzo up by 1/10.5, and if all is well in the final sector, should be comfortably heading through.
Out of battery though, before they even got towards Stoke Corner, about halfway down the Hanger Straight, they'd run out of those electrical energy tokens, using all of the track available to them in towards Vale Corner and through both club corners. The double right-hander that finishes off here at Silverstone. Can they find time? They can. Third fastest, and with enough drivers behind them, guaranteed safety for them here this afternoon.
The Varzo definitely through. Third member of that 126.3 club. Gabor Chonstos, what's the first sector looking like? 27.2, in and around the right ballpark. This is the problem, though, when you don't have that banker lap time on the board. You find yourself treading on eggshells a little bit, maybe leaving a bit of time on the table, perhaps, as Jensen Rosen up by 600 through the first and second sector. Conrad Bohm hasn't scored a point yet this season, but puts himself up into P7 and probably into qualifying 2.
Rosen was purple in the first sector. That has been taken away, I believe, by Alex Santana in the early stages as well. More drivers continuing to set lap times. We're keeping an eye on Jensen Rosen. Round the final corner they go. That's almost safety. Fourth fastest here this afternoon. Tamas Kokene going faster as well as Peter Stakulek goes fifth fastest. So more times coming thick and fast here in qualifying 1. And the likes of Luca Rapace, I think, could still be expected to go faster. Nelson Alves and Florian not setting times here this afternoon, so 2 guaranteed to be taking early showers. Victor Vidler will join them in that row.
Vidler gone. Tomasetto can't improve either. Positionally up to only P17. Heading out. Alex Santana finding a 10th through the first couple of sectors. From P19 goes to 13th. Still very much looking over their shoulder. Now down to 14th as Kokeni goes 6th fastest. Luca Rapace not down in Q2 a week ago in China. 11th on the grid. Currently very much under the cosh here in 17th. Needs to find an improvement. Both McLarens under pressure. Pressakan goes to 12th. It's going to be Tulki or Rapace. Rapace to the line. Goes 15th. Just squeezes through at the expense of Larry Tulki. He misses out by 400ths of a second.
Wow, what a qualifying and what an opening to Q1 that we've just seen. I wasn't far off when I said low 26.5s for that initial cut-off point, and I think for, who was it, 15th place, it was Tycho Hardy, sorry, 14th, was holding on to the edge of their seat there just to manage to make it through. Alex Santana as well, just scraping their way through into the second qualifying session. But those are the drivers that we are missing out. Larry Tulki, Gabor Chonstos, Ilya Tomasetto, Victor Vilda, Nelson Alves and Florian as well. Those drivers will not be making an appearance in the second qualifying session, which is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, and I thought for a moment Tycho Hardy might have been sweating there. Top 16 covered by just over a couple of tenths, quarter of a second perhaps from D'Ortenzio down to Alex Santana. No, less than 2 tenths per second. That is how tight this is going to be. And if you thought Q1 was going to be challenging to get through, well, Q2 definitely going to have to be on the track at the right time. Make sure you get your lap in, because as we're seeing, a third of a tenth, just 300ths of a second, that could be worth maybe even 6 positions.
It's going to be very, very close. And of course, that'll get slightly elongated as we do get into race day proper in the next half an hour or so. But for now, qualifying 2 is about to come your way. We are down to 16 drivers on the grid here this afternoon. We won't have that usual messing around, we'll put it that way, at the start of Q1 that we see. No more Inters tyres to be run by expectedly any driver. You can see almost everybody making their way out of pit road here. I think if they're lucky, they might be able to get 3 runs in here of Q2, should they need it.
Yeah, definitely going for that used tyre run as well at the start of the qualifying session. Not sure who was first out, potentially Stakelek or maybe Steven Varzo first out onto the circuit. Yes, it is Petr Stakelek, 14th fastest at the moment with no times on the board, of course. So the Q1 benchmark, that 126.315 from Angelo D'Ortenzio. You would expect we might take a couple of stabs at getting past that. Shouldn't see an improvement on the first runs, of course, with the used tyre lap times that'll be flying in. But can we get into the 2s? Can we maybe get into the 1s? If you remember a week ago in China, we actually had a big improvement of about a quarter of a second, I think it was, between the Q1 benchmark and the Q2 benchmark. Too many T's and too many Q's and too many 2s.
It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it, as you make your way through. And it's only going to get worse as more drivers join and more teams change their names to add or include sponsorship. Obviously, the McLaren MasterCard, MasterCard McLaren Formula 1 team, or whichever way around they want to try and spin it. You've got Mercedes-AMG Petronas, and obviously their title sponsors do make it a bit of a mouthful. Let's not even get started on Ferrari Esports, or the Scuderia Ferrari HP Esports team, as they are formerly known.
V, what's Racing Bull's title? Visa Cash App Racing Bull's Red Bull Powertrains Ford, or something like that.
Something like that. It's a long word. They couldn't actually fit it all on one thing, which is why they have just gone for the initialism.
V-Carb or RB, we still don't mind. Is there an official title yet? I still can't remember.
It's slower than Red Bull. That's their official title.
Not by that much, though.
No.
Let's be honest with how decent that car is. But it is Stackelect round in Club Corner. And they'll be the first to head out onto a fast lap in qualifying 2 through Abbey Corner and farm flat as you like. First braking zone, turn 3, down into Village. Do we crank the steering lock on to get the front to bite? Not quite as flicky as I've seen some other drivers going. Actually, decent bit of rotation through the loop of turn number 4. Back of the car, little bit wobbly midway through the corner as we punch it through Aintree and down the Wellington straight. The benchmark through the first sector for Stackelect, probably going to be the used tyre run, as we've said, 27.4, so a little bit down on what you would expect the fresh tyres to provide.
Absolutely, and of course you will have the opportunity to go again, if not once, maybe twice, with a fresh set of tyres. And for those drivers that, I don't want to say a hard stuck Q2, because that sounds like a very mean way to put it, but the drivers that maybe don't anticipate making their way out of the second qualifying sector, they'll have the knowledge in the back of their head that they can use that bonus set of tyres without having to necessarily worry about using it in Q3. Because if they get through to Q3, all's happy as Larry. They've made it through. They can set a representative lap time. They may start 10th, which is always better than you'll be in Q2. With the drivers that know with some decision of certainty they're going to get through to Q3, obviously limited a lot more in terms of tyre options.
I think for some drivers, I wouldn't say there's anybody that's going to be ruled out here as Stackelect back into the pits. Obviously didn't fancy completing that one. It's Lucas Beisner in the Ferrari. A more sort of deep red colour. I was going to try and add another adjective to describe red like red. But anyway, we through the final corner we fly. Beisner with a 26.6 on the used tyres to set the benchmark. Luero straight back into the 26.4s. That's not that much slower than their Q2 time. And Santana slots just in between them.
3 sectors, all 3 purple across 3 different drivers, as Tamas Kokkanate goes second fastest as well, and then immediately somehow invalidates Tudor Prescott. Goes fastest for Veloce Academy, putting themselves on a 1:26.478, finding just a bit of time ahead of Alejandro. Of course, 7th down, either retreated to the pits or didn't want to go out on a used tyre run to start off with, which is fairly self-explanatory if they don't want to burn up a set of tyres or don't want to try and get involved this early on.
Absolutely. Just seeing the differences in the tactics. Some drivers going for that used tyre run. You find it unlikely that somebody like Tudor Prescan or Alejandro Luero will manage to squeak through on those high 26.4s, but you never know. You never know. And if you do have that little bit of a safety net with a decent bank lap, which it is, only less than a couple of tenths down on what would have set the fastest lap time in Q1, and both of those times would have got the drivers through to Q2. So they're decent bankers on those used tyres.
It is, and they're not to be laughed at in any way, shape or form. There is not much time between the top 6 in the opening stages of this qualifying. Of course, once they do bolt on a fresh set of tyres and have the full availability of that Pirelli grip, they will start to find time in every nook and cranny of this Silverstone circuit. So don't take it as you find it at the moment. We watch here with Jensen Rosen the Williams livery, which I think has been really well recreated over the course of the last few weeks. It is one of the prettier looking cars on the circuit, at least in qualifying. When we do get into a race situation, we do see all the sponsors officially back. That is a completely different story, I feel.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of drivers that have done a good job. I think one of the Alpines, it might be Stephen Vars, has got a very nicely worked livery there. That is looking pretty decent for Jensen Rosen as well. I think the 2 McLarens are pretty all right as well. But yeah, part of me does quite like seeing the F1 World Cup because it is quite nice to see the liveries that the drivers come up with, the mock-up liveries, to try and mimic what we've got in real life. It would be easier, of course, if all of the cars were equal, but because of the different shapes and the different ways that they attack bumps, for example, those microscopic milliseconds, do pretty much the same words there, but those very, very small margins, they do make all the difference when it is as close as it has been in qualifying.
Absolutely, and we've seen drivers set identical lap times, which I think reinforces that idea of we need the baseline to be perfect, because when we have such close margins, it is going to be a matter of maybe a thousandth of a second that separates the driver, maybe not necessarily getting through to Q2 or getting through to Q3, but when we get to Q3 being 1 or 2 places up above where they were originally expected to qualify. So it is such tight-knit margins. Jensen Rosson once again in towards the opening sector. Will be the first set of competitive lap time by the looks of things. Well, just keeping an eye on the battery. They are burning on the exit down towards the Wellington straight, and they'll get the straight line mode open. They've got a fair bit of traffic on this circuit. All 15 other cars are out there with him.
Looked like the tail went a little bit light there through Aintree. We had the battery deployed, 27.2 through the first sector, negotiating the traffic well through Brooklands. Now through the endlessly long right-hander of Luffield, just desperately trying to get the power down as soon as you possibly can. Another car gets out of the way through Woodcote, and we fly up towards Cox Corner in the Atlantic Williams racing car rather than the Atlassian Williams racing car. Fairly close, and like we said, very decent recreation. Now though, Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel. Not as exciting as it would have been 12 months ago, but still very famous corners, still very, very sweet corners to drive, even if you are at 75% speed. And the first couple of sectors looking fairly decent for Jensen Rosson.
Yeah, personal best in the first purple second sector, a 35.612. But of course, take that with a slight pinch of salt, where drivers have yet to put on a fresh set of compound tyres. But in towards Vale, the last of the heavy braking zones on this circuit, before they throw the car in, wait for the weight transfer and get the car power straight back to the floor. They do go fastest, does Jensen Rosson, 1:26.388. And the first of the drivers to do so on fresh tyres. Keep an eye on Angelo D'Ortenzio. They are going purple in the first sector, Tom.
I'm thinking 26.3, definitely the time you're going to want to try and achieve to get yourself into the final part of qualifying. D'Ortenzio nicely riding it through Maggots, through Beckett's, through Chapel, clinging onto it through Chapel Curve and barreling it out now onto the Hangar Straight. Decent middle sector, although it looks like maybe a little bit down on Jensen Rosson perhaps.
To keep an eye on times, it was the 35.6 in the middle sector. Pitter does go fastest, the 26.306, so finds 82 thousandths of a second on Jensen Rosson. Fabrizio Donoso, keep an eye on them. They're purple in the middle sector, as is Tycho Hardy in the first. Here comes Angelo D'Ortenzio, fastest overall, 26.291. Next to follow the line will be Donoso, as they've jumped up to third fastest. Here comes P12, Tycho Hardy.
Championship leader through the final couple of corners. Foot flat to the floor through Club. What are we going to manage as we cut the beam? Third fastest. Once again, 26.3. Tycho Hardy in position number 3 as it's the magic number. Bison the slowest at the moment, still on that 26.6. Here's Liam Stevens in the Aston Martin charging towards the Vale chicane. Conrad Bone with a mistake out there going again after an unrepresentative 38.8. Here comes the green machine though. Stevens to the line, third fastest. Displaces Tycho Hardy.
Joris Krozen, Luca Rapassa and Julian Klaffenbach all on laps. Luca Rapassa does go 6th fastest for the McLaren outfit. We watch here with Joris Krozen, who has done the dutiful project of hosting, I believe, over the course of the last few weeks. They go 5th fastest. The last driver to set a time on the board, Klaffenbach, here they are, crosses the line, goes 7th fastest, so mid-pack at the moment. I think you're right in saying 26.3, somewhere in that domain, is almost certainly going to be the cut-off for making it through to Q3.
Got to be a low 26.3. Look at that. Rapassa now down to P10. Rosson out of the top 10 on that 26.388. Improvements for Varzo, I think it was, and Tamas Kekeni up to P3 on the 26.330. So Rapassa, Rosson, Luero, Beisner, Santana, and Bohm still need to find the time. I'm interested to see if Bohm is out there pushing again after the failed attempt on the first flying lap. Santana on a 26.6, definitely not enough. Yes, Bohm is still out there going. Little bit of traffic to contend with as we ghost through the car on the run into the pit, and we do bail out of that one. And I think invalidated as well, which I obviously didn't see.
He did. Unfortunate for Bohm there. And well, I'm not quite sure who was the car that was on the exit of Stowe Corner. A little bit of issues in the pits. It was Angelo D'Ortenzio, so I wonder if there's going to be maybe some quarrels being kicked up about that one. But as most drivers will make a retreat back to pit road, the expectation would be no one's going faster on circuit at the moment. Just looking across the lap times that we can see on our screens. Yeah, nobody's setting personal bests or purple sectors. With just over 4 minutes to go here in Q2, we await for Q3, and that will be the shootout for pole position.
Now, last week you predicted correctly that in Q2, none of the drivers would go for that ego retirement, we like to call it. Looking at the situation now, TK, Angelo D'Ortenzio less than a tenth separating himself and Luca Rapassa at the top of the drop zone. Do you think anybody's going to take that plunge? Or Dortenzio potentially being the only driver in the 26.2s, but everybody else, I think, will probably make their way out again.
I think it's going to be close because, as you said, it's so close between drivers up and down the field. There's 92 thousandths of a second between Dortenzio and Rapasa. So that is basically the difference between making it into Q3 and not at the moment. The entire field, if we exclude maybe Conrad Bohm, who hasn't set a representative lap time, 3.1 tenths across the entire field. Again, if we remove Alex Santana, who maybe hasn't had the best of runs, 1.7 tenths across the entire field. That is how close this qualifying is at the moment, and it's only going to get closer as we head for the final runs of the afternoon. You can see more drivers just getting prepped and ready to peel their way back out of pit lane. Potentially a double warm-up lap could be on the offering.
A 10th separating second down to 13th, and you do not want to fall on the wrong side of those slender margins. Fabrizio Donoso back out there, Conrad Bohm too. Fabrizio Donoso leading the charge with Stakelek and Bohm going through Aintree, or going through Village and the Loop, getting rather well acquainted with each other. You can see there on the mini map. If we look at the times, I said 26.3. I think obviously you've got to be in the 26.3s. 26.34 I'm looking at potentially to see you through. Tycho Hardy 26.346. We like to do these predictions, don't we, TK? I think Tycho Hardy might be sweating a little bit.
I'm going to go on a really super specific for absolutely no reason prediction. I think Tycho Hardy's going to miss out by 1,000th of a second. I think that the time that you'll need is a 1:26.345. That's going to be my prediction here.
I'm going to go 3.48, and then we'll see if we look like complete idiots here, or if one of us clearly needs to go and do the lottery.
Or we just have commentated far too much of other people racing and have got a vague idea of what these times do tend to be. Of course, with the new regulations, it has been somewhat thrown out of the window, but obviously intuition tells you it's roughly about that place in the leaderboard that it tends to find time. Anything can happen, though, in esports and racing in general. Motorsport is a cruel mistress at the best of times, and we are about to see that here in Q2.
Most definitely. Drivers under pressure. Alex Santana went out very late. Is going to make it round with a decent amount of time spare, but slightly out of sync. About 30 seconds, maybe 20 seconds off the back of the next closest driver. But Conrad Bohm needs to find a lot of time. Fabrizio Donoso currently inside the top 10, but very much on the bubble. 26.370. If you can find half a tenth, that is going to be so crucial, especially for these drivers that head into the final flying laps inside the cutoff point.
Keep an eye then as they make their way down the Wellington straight up towards Luffield and Brooklands corners. Driver in ninth fastest, not finding time, if anything, about a tenth down, and a massive snap there for Fabrizio Donoso in towards Luffield corner. And surely there's going to be brown trousers in the Cadillac car there this afternoon. They've got enough time to back off, but I'm not sure if they've got enough time, Tom, to get round and go again. So it is going to be an all or nothing lap here for Fabrizio Donoso. Hoping, begging and praying they make their way through to Q3, but it's looking very unlikely.
Trapdoors could be opening there for Donoso as Bohm heads through. Going to be difficult to try and work out necessarily what the time's going to look like for Bohm because they're 12 seconds off the pace as things stand. Carrying a lot of speed there, though, through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. High 102s. That is in the run around the right kind of place for Conrad Bohm. You can see Donoso there going slowly. That is the target you definitely need to try and get yourself ahead of. Conrad Bohm 16th at the moment, yet to score a point so far this season, but can we pull a decent lap out of the bag to give himself a shot at getting into Q3?
His third and final sector, where he lost so much of his pace last time around, up towards the line. 26.349. This is going to be incredibly close in terms of qualifying. Pitter could not improve, stays second fastest, and here come the rest of the times, Tom.
Donoso, you would expect, is out, but Varzo doesn't improve. 1 millisecond down on his personal best. So it's still Donoso. A lot of drivers not actually finding the time they need to make any meaningful improvements. Bison are up by just under a tenth. At the moment, that's going to be right on the cusp. Liam Stevens fastest, though, takes over from Angelo Dortenzio in the Aston Martin car. Still Fabrizio Donoso. No, Donoso's been knocked down. Jensen Rosen into the top 10. Ortenzio takes it back with a 26.1. Big improvement from him. Luero goes third fastest on a 26.2. Now Bohm, very much the driver at risk as the championship leader drifting out of the Vale chicane. Tycho Hardy, ninth, becomes second.
Joris Krozen as well, making time, 26,000 of a second. Bohm's knocked down in towards the bottom 6. Krozen goes fast, well, second fastest, meaning that Varso's now knocked down. Can Luca Rapassa find time? They aren't through the second sector. They might find something magical in the third. No. Alex Santana, the last driver, who might be able to do something magical here. And they are improving through the second sector, Tom. But in towards Vale and Club is a very important set of corners for them.
Don't think it's going to be enough unless this final set is absolutely miraculous to the line. I think it was still only 16th for Santana in the 26.4s, 15th in the end for Alex Santana. Really close session. Not a lot of drivers finding improvements in Sector 1. The time seemed to come to them in the second half of the lap, but the 6 to make way. Steven Varso, both of us were wrong. You needed to be a little bit faster. Varso, Bohm, Donoso, Rapassa, Santana, and Lucas Bison make way. 3/10 covering the 16 drivers. Needed to be in that 26.33s to get yourself through. Jensen Rosen making it by 0.04 of a second.
I was
0.04 of a second, sorry.
I was 0.07 of a second off. That was incredibly close in terms of qualifying. And you know what? Not bad for a bit of a guess in the win. But as you rightly said, 10 drivers through that will be looking to try and challenge for pole position now as we head towards the British Grand Prix. E3 is coming away in the next few moments.
And that was a bit of a statement lap, wasn't it, from Angelo D'Ortenzio? Only driver in the 26.1s. And what was the margin? Just under 1/10.5, separating himself and the next closest driver, which I believe was Tycho Hardy. So an interesting bit of a movement there from Angelo D'Ortenzio. Took pole position a week ago in China, looking to go back to back. And we'll see if anybody can close that gap to the Ferrari man.
Here we go then, as we get ready to see if we're able to manage to get an even lower lap time. Q3 coming away. The track is cooled off by a degree from the start of Q1. It's now sitting at 34 degrees Celsius, 23 degrees in the air, which is going to be interesting. But let us know in the live chat, whether you're watching along, or hopefully you're watching along, who you think is going to take pole position here at Silverstone, the Earl Grey of British Motorsports, we've mentioned slightly earlier on. Will it be Angelo D'Ortenzio? Will it be his sister Angela D'Ortenzio? Will it be Liam Stevens? Will it be somebody else? We want to hear from you.
Let us know the time as well. Nordic Ninja wondering, are we going to get a 0.9? Will we be dipping into the 25s? That's an interesting question as well, as the shackles are broken for some of these drivers, knowing that they will be at worst 10th place on the grid. And they can really try and rag this one out to try and find as much time, extract as much performance out of themselves and their machinery as possible. Really try and get into that flow, that rhythm that we know. Once you get into it at Silverstone, it can feel like such a dream to drive.
It is. It's a lovely flowy circuit. No matter, I think, in what format you drive this track in as well, whether it's in a Formula Spec car, if it's in a sports car, if it's in something a little bit, out the way, like an Aerial Atom, if you want to take that round Silverstone circuit, it is just one that when you manage to hook it up, it does start to feel alive. It's a lovely, fast and flowing circuit. Oh, we've got the safety car back!
Bernd!
Yes!
Bernd is back! Well, clearly our posters that we handed out in secret, the missing person posters, Bernd Mailander has been found and he's out there trucking along in that Mercedes car that's got a new livery, of course, in real life. Tycho Hardy returning to the pits there.
Maybe just a preparation lap on an old set of soft compound tyres. But yeah, I'm so glad Bernd is back. We missed him in Q3 last week. We managed to see him in Q2, if you can remember, back a week ago. So maybe he's just visiting us at different qualifying sessions over the course of different weeks. Maybe we missed him in Q1 at Australia. Maybe we didn't see him.
Potentially we didn't. Maybe we just didn't pick him up at all. He might have been here for the whole qualifying session. We don't know. We just haven't managed to snipe Bernd Mailander, who's been very sneakily making his way around the circuit. So as Tycho Hardy jumped back into the pit lane, it's now Tamas Kokeni that will lead the assault of the 5 drivers currently out on the road as things stand. Rosen, D'Ortenzio, no, that's the drivers that are on the circuit. Havenborg, Hardy, Pressekan, Krozen, and Stevens, the drivers in the pits.
Yeah, it won't be long until we do see them out on the circuit. We expect them out probably the next few moments, actually, just getting themselves prepared and ready. As we do watch Tamas Kokeni coming through the final corner. And we'll keep an eye on the battery as they do start to deploy down towards the opening corner. And it'll be the first of the representative lap times here at Silverstone. What can they lay down? Because the benchmark here is going to be almost as important as the final lap time.
Looked like Kokeni maybe just touched the grass ever so slightly on the run down into Village. Didn't put off the Cadillac too badly as we wind it now out of the loop through entry and onto the Wellington straight. Heading down under the Louis Vuitton barrier and board above us, and it's a 27.2 through that first sector. Slightly wide, manages to get the late apex through Brooklands, keeping it tight through left field, really tight to the inside through left field corner.
Beautifully done, and through Woodcote, and up towards the old pit straight for Kokene. Up towards Copse Corner, one of the fastest, if not the fastest, on this Silverstone circuit. Does well to keep all 4 tyres just about within track limits before heading down towards the infamous recharge zone. You can see the safety car just in front of them. They will be a welcome sight of Burton probably in the race later on if that does ever came to fruition. I do believe it won't. But Burton likes to make an appearance at least once in a qualifying session here in the Ventauri Pro Series. But for Kokene, he's got to try and focus here. Stowe Corner comes a calling, throwing the right-hander, throws the car into it. And now the heavy braking zone of Vale is the last challenge on this circuit.
Oh, using the grass there over the entry curb on the right-hand side of the track. Uses a bit of the sausage curve through the second part of this chicane as well. Kokene round the final corner. Kokene with a benchmark of a 1:26.322 for everybody else to chase.
No one else set a opening sector. The first of those drivers is going to be Angelo D'Ortenzio. So the next driver to set a lap time as they make their way through the Luffield and Brooklands I forgot the word for
Complex?
it. That's complex. Thank you very much. It's been a long day. I'll put it that way. And now on towards the old pit straight for D'Ortenzio and in towards Copse Corner. They've got to be careful because when we get to race trim here, Tom, it's going to be a very brutal section to overtake. Possible in the 2026 regulations. Advisable, probably not so much.
Especially when we've got everybody with very differing battery levels and battery deployment strategies, and some drivers going, well, I'm going to get a shift on here, I'm just going to dump a load of ERS, see how it works out. D'Ortenzio about a 10th up on Tamas Kokene through the first couple of sectors. The favourite you would expect heading into the shootout. Fastest in Q1, fastest in Q2. Started with a 26.3, lowered it to a 26.1 in qualifying 2. As we head to complete his first flying lap in Q3, do we lower the benchmark even further with the Scarlet Ferrari? D'Ortenzio around the final corner. Do we take over? Yes, first driver into the 26.0s. Big movement again from D'Ortenzio. Stakelek just over a 10th down in P2. Rosen also in the 26.2s.
Tycho Hardy finding time on D'Ortenzio in the opening sector, but of course, as we know, it's all about consistency over the course of a lap here in the 2026 regulations. It is not anymore about how fast you are over a certain sector, albeit saying that D'Ortenzio did go purple in all 3 sectors on their last lap time that gained them that infamous 26.086. It's a personal best for Tycho Hardy as they run down the hanger straight towards Stowe Corner. They've just got, well, 3 more corners to try and navigate in totality here at Silverstone. And if they manage to hook this up, it's looking like a very good lap time. You keep an eye on Joris Krozen, though, who has gone fastest in the second sector.
Tycho Hardy, I think, nip and tuck with D'Ortenzio. Stevens to 4th, Prescant 5th. Hardy to the line, championship leader. Second fastest, just over a 10th down. Joris Krozen mounting the sausage curb on the inside of the Vale chicane. Pole sitter in round 1. Krozen only 7th fastest.
Something we're talking about, isn't it? It's all about consistency. As Julian Klaffenbach now goes 6th fastest to knock Krozen down to 8th. Rosen down to 9th. And Tamas Kokene, who set the slowest time of the afternoon, is down in 10th place at 26.322. Will simply not cut it if they want to try and take away pole position. But as it stands at the moment, Angelo D'Ortenzio, 116 thousandths of a second in front of everybody else, and a lot closer in the rest of the field. It's just 1,000th that separates Alejandro and Pitter for 3rd and 4th respectively.
Something has just fallen down behind me.
No!
Massive crash that's absolutely I mean, I can't use the term that I would normally use, but let's just say it's a Code Brown moment in the office right now. But yes, I think D'Ortenzio with that decent margin as well. It's a big whack of time over that group behind. That just leaves you with the safety net, doesn't it? Where you have got that little bit more confidence. You can lean on it. And it's probably a bit of an ego push as well, saying, come on then. I don't think any of you are going to get anywhere near this. I'm just going to try and extend that margin even more.
Now, I'm not saying this would ever happen in a 3rd and final qualifying session, because I can't say I've ever seen it in Q3, apart from when we've had rain. But imagine the ego retire from Angelo D'Ortenzio at this moment in time, going, look, I've set my lap time. I know you're not getting there. This pole is mine. Imagine the scenes if that did happen. They are over a 10th clear, the fastest time you've seen all day so far from any driver out there on the circuit. And with just 4 minutes left in the session, it's going to be very close to keep an eye on. Chad's already saying holy glaze. I mean, it's set a lap time that's equal to that, and we'll say the same about you. Just saying.
Yeah, I've also sorted the drama that befell me behind. It was the borrowed, in inverted commas, air conditioning unit that's stopping this from being 33 degrees, and the pipe fell out of the window and started pumping all the hot air directly into my face, which wasn't very pleasant.
I wouldn't recommend that. I've heard it's not very good for the skin.
No, it's like being sat in a sauna, which I don't fancy after the day that we've had. And with the computers and everything that's on, pumping even more hot air going through, I mean, you're not going to be envious of the position I was in there.
I promise you, if there was any shadow of a doubt, I was not envious of being in that position. It is warm enough in this office. It's 28 degrees with the PC running and all the lights on as well, so it's not a pleasant temperature, I think, as well, with the humidity at its current state. I'm hoping and praying to all the weather gods that exist that it does cool down over the next few days, because honestly, I wouldn't mind if it snowed. That would be a lovely change of temperature.
I just want some rain. I just want to stand out. If it absolutely chucks it down, I'm heading straight out the front door, just standing there in the rain, basking in it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one that we want to see how it goes.
And we can't make jokes anymore. We say, oh, the weather's terrible in this country. The weather's terrible for the opposite reason. As look at this. Burns back out on the circuit. Angelo D'Ortenzio just ghosting through, shape-shifting through the safety car that's out there. The provisional pole sitter, not the first to venture out. I believe that is Petr Stakalek heading through Luffield right now. Will be the first to attack this circuit for the final time in qualifying. Sat in fourth at the moment on the 26.212. Are we going to get anybody else get into the 26 flats? That's the question. Can you find a tenth of a second on this final run?
That'll be the question for all of our drivers, and Angelo D'Ortenzio knows the weight of the world is either on or off of his shoulders at the moment. If he improves, it's all glory to Scuderia Ferrari. If he doesn't find time, and someone else does, then it's going to be a very bad day at the office, because anybody here, you could quite easily say, has the capacity to find their way into pole position. We've got, F1 esports drivers, or F1 Sim Racing World Championship drivers, if we want to be political about it, that do have the capacity to go this fast. They are signed and sealed and almost delivered, for the most part. The likes of Kroos and Klaffenbach, who we expect to do well over the course of this series. And obviously, most traditional drivers taking a break from sim racing, which is completely understandable. These guys doing it for the pure love of the game and continuing to race on.
The love of the game. Say it again. Stakalek over the line to start their final flying lap of the qualifying session. Nordic Ninja earlier asked, will we get anybody in the 25.9s? I think your only hope is Angelo D'Ortenzio finding a tenth of a second on this final run. Stakalek through Village, through the loop, and up towards Aintree we fly for the final time in the Alpine, I believe. Although it's blue, so it could be a Williams as well. Straight line mode is opened. Do we find an improvement through the first sector? We do, and it's a decent time as well. I think that's the fastest first sector. 27.1 from Stakalek.
Yeah, fastest at the moment, I believe. 27.192 was achieved by Tycho Hardy. So very on par with that. It's all dependent on whether they're able to keep it up over the next two sectors. We'll keep watching with eager anticipation on board with this Williams / potentially Alpine livery. And through the recharge zone of Magnus Beckers and Chapel. Again, I don't hate this circuit as much as I think I would have done with the 2026 regulations. The cars still look beautiful, throwing it through this parade of corners.
Stakalek continues to find time in a really decent position here. Could momentarily, maybe only, but take it away from Angelo D'Ortenzio, who I think is finding time through sector one as well. Slightly wide of the apex through Stowe Corner. Just one braking zone left to negotiate on your fly lap. Carries a hell of a lot of speed into the first part of the Bale chicane. Stakalek trying to take provisional pole away from D'Ortenzio. Cutting the beam with Stakalek. Doesn't manage it. Does get onto the front row, but didn't improve in the final sector.
D'Ortenzio is finding time, 65,000th of a second through the second sector. He'll need to find just a little bit more than that, about 20,000ths of a second if he wants to try and get into the 25s. Is he going to be pushing through the final corner? Round club they will go. D'Ortenzio, can they? Yes, they can. 25.954. Surely a miracle needed from other drivers now.
Rosen to P6, Liam Stevens onto the front row, 26.1. Luero takes it away though, 26 flat, really nice time from the Red Bull Racing driver. Kakeni rounds the far on the corner now, slowest at the moment. That becomes P5 with a 26.1. Tudor Pressacan jumps over the sausage curb on the inside of the Vale chicane. What can the McLaren man manage over the line? P5 for the winner of Social Race 2.
Joris Krozen only second fastest. What can Klaffenbach do here as they come around the final corner? They stay 10th fastest. Cannot find improvement. Hardy as well. Oh my goodness, that was close. Where do they finish? It's going to be 3rd fastest for Hardy. But Andre Tortenzio, a league of their own here this afternoon. The only driver, one of 2 drivers into the 125s. I should correct myself, as both himself and Joris Krozen do make it into that illustrious run.
Joris Krozen chasing him down right until the very death, missing it by just 0.03 of a second. Excellent from the pair of them. Champion leader Tycho Hardy, consistent as ever in P3, ahead of Luero. The other driver, 26 flat. Steven Stackley, Preskanky Kenny, Rosen and Klaffenbach. The top 10 separated by just over 0.3 of a second. And once again, say it again, very exciting qualifying session.
It is going to be a fantastic race. There is still lots to come here. We've had the grid decided. All 22 cars will take to their allocated grid slots after that scrumptious qualifying that we have just seen. And it's all to play for on race day. But obviously we now get to go for the rehydration break. Drivers get a few minutes to calm their nerves. And obviously for Andre Tortenzio, maybe just a trip to get yourself calm, cool and collected before they get ready to go racing. But I promise you, do not touch that dial because we will be right back with the race day.
Well, welcome back, everybody. The hydration break has come and gone. We are fully hydrated and refreshed and ready for this qualifying session. We are getting ready to load into 50% race, of course, around the Silverstone circuit. Strategy will be interesting to see what happens. When we spoke to, I think it was Luca Rapassa last week, who might even been Angelo D'Ortenzio, said that with that one-stop strategy, the medium-hard is starting just to be favoured a little bit compared to the hard-medium with the way that the battery management works and how important track position can be in the undercut as well. Do we expect to see something similar today, TK?
I think almost certainly. Like, we've seen the first two rounds where tyre strategy has really played into the results at the end of the day, so expect something almost identical, if not very similar, for today's racing as well. Of course, it could completely change. Drivers, their engineers, their teams, everything behind the scenes has been spending the last week trying to figure out the most optimal approach to each race as it comes. So who knows what we might see.
Yeah, and I think what we have seen as well is, as I alluded to, that undercut really powerful. Effectively won Sergio Sobrino round one. Came in, I think, with a 2 or 3 lap undercut. Got clear of that pack, who then spent about 5 or 6 laps battling incredibly hard. Built up a 5-second lead. And then there was just too much time left for those drivers, or not enough time left, I should say, for those drivers to try and chase him down in the closing stages. We're learning that track position is incredibly important. And with the way the flip-flop racing works, the battery racing works, if you get stuck in the pack, especially around a circuit like this, you get bogged down, you get stuck, and you just leak time every single corner.
You do, and it's a really unfortunate circumstance when it comes down to that, because you just have to be cautious on every single lap. It may not seem like it because it's a tough circuit. There's going to be 26 laps of racing, but you've got to almost imagine like a mini endurance event, especially with no safety cars. If you minimise damage, that is going to be your saving grace at the course of the entire Grand Prix. Someone in chat has asked, which way does the track go? Clockwise? Is that the answer that they're wanting? It goes right, then left, then right a few more times, then left again, then right, then a bit of a squiggle, then right, then left, then right.
Goes right, but then we know that it has to eventually go left to make it back to where we start. Otherwise, we'd just be continuing on forever. We have lost one driver. Obviously, Florian Fanselter didn't qualify, has pulled out of this one as well. Not sure whether that's down to unforeseen circumstances or internet or wheel issues, but unfortunately, it is only going to be 21 on the grid today, but still more than we would have had in the 25 cars, more than we've had for the last 10 years almost.
Who knows? We might even see Bert Mailander making it 22 cars on the grid for a brief moment. He liked his outing in qualifying so much, he actually texted me during that break saying, "Can I come race?" And I didn't say no. So who knows what might happen.
We've got a free spot now, so Bert, call us, get involved. Remember, safety car, this is why we think he's been making appearances. Safety car's been switched off. We've also got the weather turned to, I think it's still turned to clear because of the battery problems that happen. Some people getting hot lap, some people not getting hot lap. So those are the two things that we do need to contend with. But predictions, everybody? Who are we fancying as we flash over to the wonderful pit lane here at the Silverstone circuit? It'll be hard-pressed to look past Angelo D'Ortenzio, but maybe there'll be somebody else. Long time until we first apply the anchors down at turn number 3. Ferrari versus Haas on the front row. D'Ortenzio versus Crozen, and we're racing for round number 3 here of the Ventauri Pro Series. D'Ortenzio getting away okay, but it's actually Crozen on the inside of Abbey, stealing a march and stealing the lead straight out of the starting blocks. Heading down into turn number 3. Little bit of wobbly there because D'Ortenzio on the cold shoulder, giving the cold shoulder on the outside, having to fend for his life. Championship leader Tycho Hardy already pulling one over on the Ferrari, and the Pulsar getting it from all angles. Now Luera around the outside of Aintree.
Alejandro fancying his chances down towards Luffield and Brooklyn's corner. The Rebel tries it around the outside of the long left-hander. This will open up the inside line, but it's cut off and the door slammed in his face by D'Ortenzio. This invites Stevens to try and get involved as they run through Woodcote corner and on towards the old pit straight. The Rebel racing car, who had been so egregious in the opening laps or the opening corners of this race, now under pressure from the lean green racing machine. There's good fighting going on further behind as well between both Fabrizio Donoso and Gabor Chonstos, but that's for 16th place on circuit. Here comes Conrad Bohm getting the better of Luca Rapassa in towards Maggis, Beckett and Chappell, and the early moves are starting to be made.
I think we've got all 3 tyre compounds potentially on the field. I've definitely seen both Haas cars sporting the red soft tyres. Car off in the background, coming out of Chapel Curve. Tulke off into the pickets, into the gravel. Maybe some contact with Nelson Alves, but that is not the way to move onto the hanger straight, going backwards, trailing down the barriers. So Larry Tulke disconnected. Down the inside goes his teammate. That's D'Ortenzio under pressure again from the Red Bull of Luera, who I think has looped it round off picture. I think Luera's had a big blunder there. Yes, both Red Bulls now down at the back of the pack. Luera from provisionally was very momentarily up to 3rd, now down in 20th.
Lots of ghosting as well, I think we're seeing in the opening lap of this race, and that's actually what's benefiting a few drivers. We saw Tycho Hardy, I think, making moves through club corner with effect to that ghosting. Moves further back, Gabor Chonstos and Fabrizio Donoso still going side by side as Rapasa and Bowman and Santana all getting involved amongst one another. Here comes Angelo D'Ortenzio looking for a move on Hardy in towards Luffield and Brooklands, but again, just is playing the patient game. The leader, Joris Krozen, on the soft compounded tyre, has to make a run for it now.
I like seeing this little bit of divergent strategy-wise. Joris Krozen trying to extend their legs out in front as Hardy left to deal with a pole sitter. Angelo D'Ortenzio, pole sitter in third. Championship leader, let's not forget. In second, Tycho Hardy. A couple of second places so far this season. The first one being 2 weeks ago in Australia. As we see the battles continuing on behind. I think that was a car off the road. Nelson Alves getting it from all angles. Through goes Luero, through goes Tomasetto, and Alves bumped back down into position 20 with only Larry Tulke a further second and a half back down the road. Luca Rapasa second in the championship, still bogged down in the midfield in P12, though has disposed of Santana. Here comes D'Ortenzio into Stoke corner. Door slammed in his face by Tycho Hardy.
Thought about it for half a moment and unfortunately didn't pay off this time around. Here comes Tudor Presica in towards the Vale chicane. Tamas Kokone caught napping at the exit of Stoke corner, and the McLaren tries it round the outside as they'll continue to run the outside through club corner. Stunning there from Tudor Prescan to find their way up to 7th fastest, but Tamas Kokone still wanting to go at him as Alex Santana as well further back. The Aston Martin thought about a move on Luca Rapasa, but Lucas Beisner wanting to get involved. There's been a change to the lead as Tycho Hardy and Joris Krozen are going side by side through the opening sector of corners. D'Ortenzio has got a stunning view of this.
Krozen could be under the cosh here. It's D'Ortenzio with the best run coming out of Aintree onto the Wellington Straight. Blast past Tycho Hardy. We can see a McLaren of Luca Rapasa getting busy just in the background. That is losing out potentially to Santana. I think there might be 4 wide just outside the top 10 potentially. Liam Stevens with a look around the outside of Tycho Hardy. Car off in the grass. That is a Mercedes. I think it is Gabor Chonstos losing out. Yes, down to P21. Second time in 3 races, Gabor Chonstos with a bit of a wobble in the opening couple of laps, sending him towards the back of the pack.
Looking good, and side by side once again between Tycho Hardy and Liam Stevens. D'Ortenzio very slow into maggots. Through went Tycho Hardy trying to hold the best they could. Caught Liam Stevens out, I think, with just how slow the Ferrari was going. And does manage to, I think, save themselves for the most part. Doesn't look like there's any damage on board with that Aston Martin car, but they will be under pressure from the cars behind. D'Ortenzio again thinks about a move on Tycho Hardy inside this time. For Stoke corner, can Hardy hold it in towards Vale? They do. Questions will be raised as to whether they've kept all 4 tyres on the circuit, and they're incredibly slow. Let's through Angelo D'Ortenzio, and Liam Stevens wanted to try and sip that through as well. Couldn't quite on this occasion.
Hardy with the big squeeze did not put off D'Ortenzio. Hardy then running wide through Stoke corner. Had to hand that one back to the Ferrari. Now under pressure. Liam Stevens with a bit of battery through Farm Curve and up into position number 3. Klaffenborg getting stuck in with Stag just behind into turn number 3. Inside becomes the outside for the Haas into turn number 4. Stevens with a bit of a wobble coming out of turn 4 of the loop. Still side by side through Aintree. Eyeball to eyeball. Little bit of banging of tyres between the Alpine and the Haas. Down the Wellington Straight. Tycho Hardy potentially getting swallowed up as well. Brought into this battle, contact in the apex. Round goes Stakelek, eventually can't catch the slide, pointing in the wrong direction. Another car dropping to the back of the pack.
It's happened. Taylor's oldest time, isn't it? Trying to go too wide through that section of corners, but neither driver is willing to leave an inch of space. Santana and Beisner going wheel to wheel, as are Preshkan and Hardy in towards Copse corner. And that was Preshkan who did the better this time around, dispatching the V car, but keep an eye on Liam Stevens, who's had a renewed vow of speed as they make their way in towards this section of Magus, Beckett's and Chapel. The Aston Martin, they're doing the opposite of real-life drivers, is actually finding themselves in the podium positions.
A lot of drivers found themselves reversing down the order. A lot of them pointing in the wrong direction as well. Just in the background, I think that's Lucas Beisner shaping out to pull a move on Conrad Bone, potentially into Stowe corner. Joris Krozen still leading on those soft compound tyres. Ahead of D'Ortenzio, Stevens, Presican, and the championship leader Hardy, your top 5. Hardy and Klaffenborg both involved in that little skirmish between themselves and the Alpine, as Nelson Alves retiring in the pit lane. I think Stakelek's into the pits as well. Nelson Alves leaving here. Stakelek gone as well. Stakelek, the car that was involved, going through Brooklyn. So we've lost 2 drivers already, along with Van Zelter failing to start. We're down to 19 after just 4 or so laps.
2 drivers down, 19 remain. There's a bit of a gaggle of cars in the opening sector. That was Luca Rapasa, who saw what was going on in front of him with the Ferrari, the Aston Martin, maybe even the Mercedes of Conrad Bohm as well getting involved. They run down towards Luffield and Brooklyn, trying to defend from Alejandro as Luca Rapassa. They'll try and go too wide through the opening left-hander. We've seen this go bad at least once before in this race. And this time the McLaren leaves just enough room for the Red Bull Racing outfit. Holds the position through Brooklands and up through Woodcote Corner. Luca Rapassa showing it can be done to go too wide through that section and how to do it properly. But back up at the front, D'Ortenzio and Stevens are catching the soft runner of Joris Krozen.
Yeah, soft tyres definitely starting to fade away ever so slightly. I think it's only a matter of time before the pole sitter Angelo D'Ortenzio find themselves back in the lead of this Grand Prix. Liam Stevens very much still in the fray as we head onto the Hangar Straight. Haas from Ferrari, from Aston Martin. Liam Stevens a little bit closer, in fact, to Angelo D'Ortenzio than potentially the Ferrari would have liked. No real closing speed, no real run for the Ferrari into Stowe Corner. But now do we shape up? No, still happy to play the spectators' game in second, sit behind Joris Krozen through the Vale chicane.
Bit of a slide from D'Ortenzio. The exit of the Vale chicane. More drivers into the pits. That's Luca Rapassa this time around. And we'll be getting off a set of the medium tyres. Here comes D'Ortenzio, though, looking for an advantage, Tom.
Liam Stevens very much in the game as well. Down the inside, into turn 3, goes the pole sitter. Joris Krozen pushes the extremity to the circuit, keeps his foot in it. That'll turn to the inside of the loop. D'Ortenzio, though, with the traction and the grip you would expect in the ascendancy on the medium tyres, around the outside, completes the move through Aintree. And Joris Krozen still not done here because he has to deal with a feisty-looking Aston Martin, ducking and weaving this way, and that goes Stevens. Has to go the long way round into Brooklands. Doesn't find the space out there, doesn't have the foothold in the battle to keep it going on the run into Luffield. D'Ortenzio back into the lead halfway around lap number 6. Krozen soft tyres starting to wane, now down to second and potentially third because Stevens still looking at it into Copse.
Looking good at the moment, and the run down towards Maggis back into Chapel. Here comes Liam Stevens, looking on the move and in the groove and trying to go past one of the cars, but they've gone too wide. Noah's Ark through Maggis and Beckett as the Haas car try to go attacking D'Ortenzio. Stakulek does leave the session after their earlier retirement. This is another advantage, another opportunity for Krozen to make moves. He goes right, fakes right, should I say. Here comes Liam Stevens round the outside of Stowe Corner. The overspeed that they've had there, simply stunning for the Aston Martin. Into the pits goes, I believe, the Haas car of Klaffenbach. But it is going to be Stevens and Krozen trying to fight it out through the exit of the Vale chicane and through Club Corner as well. Holds the inside line, does Krozen, and just doing enough is Liam Stevens this time.
Blinken, who missed it stuff right here, right now. Thought Pressacan was going to have an opportunity into the Vale chicane to potentially make it 3 wide. Now on the defensive, though, courtesy of Tycho Hardy coming back at the McLaren into turn number 3. Will be the outside for the loop of turn 4. Still side by side. To Pressacan and Tycho Hardy for 4th and 5th, respectively. Almost contact. There is contact, in fact, on the exit of Aintree. Down onto the Wellington Straight. Contact further back as an out-of-control Alpine, I think, slamming into the Kimi Räikkönen barrier. No, it's the Mercedes of Conrad Bohm. Now having to deal with Fabrizio Donoso and a pair of Audi cars.
It was Alex Santana that came off worst, I think, in that earlier interaction. Both Audis going side by side as well. That's both Elia Tomasetto and Victor Wilder as well. The exit of Luffield and through Woodcote Corner. They're going to have to try and work together. Of course, not necessarily a team's championship from this week onwards. It's more about the drivers and how they continue to fare up. But they know they've got the Aston Martin, who's looked quick for most of the weekend, just behind them. And they might have to put their differences aside for the majority of this Grand Prix so far. But Joris Krozen still hanging out on a set of the soft compound tyres. The last runner to still have them on. Of course, Julian Klaffenbach, who also started soft, has managed to pit now for a set of hard compound tyres.
How long does Krozen stick this one out for? Need to track the progress of Klaffenbach and Rapassa, and now Joris Krozen, who does beat a retreat into the pit lane to get shot of those soft compound tyres. Probably hard to take him to the end of the race, you would imagine. Leaves Angelo D'Ortenzio out there to start lap 8 in the lead, ahead of Liam Stevens, Tycho Hardy, Tudor Pressacan, and Jensen Rosen, your top 6. And what order will the 2 Haas cars be by the time Joris Krozen emerges back onto the road?
That's going to be the question, and we'll have a look and see what P15 is going to be able to do as a long pit lane here at Silverstone. At least it feels like it, with the slow speed you have to take through that almost opening corner to pit road to prevent anybody taking a faster line through pit entry. Luca Rapassa does set the fastest lap, but here comes Julian Klaffenbach. You can see him, and you'll see him on the picture in the next few moments. They're going through past his teammate Klaffenbach, who pit a lap earlier, showing the undercut very, very powerful when all the drivers are scrapping it out in the train. So at the moment, Klaffenbach, according to my calculations, net race leader.
Definitely be the net race leader. You'd expect D'Ortenzio and Stevens to stay out probably a little bit longer unless they want to react to the punches pulled by these drivers going for the slightly earlier undercut. Stevens always pushing the Ferrari through Maggots, through Beckett's, up towards Chappell as well, saying, come on, get on with it. We need to get our skates on here because we might be losing track position courtesy of the undercuts that have been pulled. Tycho Hardy still comfortable in third position, ahead of Tudor Pressacan and Jensen Rosen, who's got Steven Varzo to deal with. Just behind, that's Lucas Beisner making a move on Tamas Kakeni into Stowe corner, but around the outside, it is the Cadillac that holds firm in their, well, grasp of 7th position. Another car into the pits. Is that Jensen Rosen, or it might be Steven Varzo potentially? Oh, another 10-second penalty. Not the first time Steven Varzo has done that this season.
I was going to say it's easy to do, but if you've done it more than once in a season that's only had 3 races so far, I think questions have to be asked. And we say this so often, isn't it? That yes, making up a couple of tenths in a pit stop can be beneficial to your race, but not when you get a 10-second penalty. You've got to look at the bigger picture sometimes and maybe try and value out and find that middle ground where you've still got a good pit entry, but don't risk getting that 10-second. We'll have a look again and see how the drivers do peel out. This is Steven Varso, the Alpine, make his way out, and look how far ahead the Haas cars are already after just 2 laps of racing.
Rapasa on rails as well, back-to-back, fastest lap, punching in the purple lap times, trying to close the gap, the deficit that formed to those 2 Haas cars just up the road, who are line astern, Klaffenbach and Krozen. 13th and 14th as things stands. We return to the lead as through Kopp's corner. Still Liam Stevens glued to the back of the pole sitter Angelo D'Ortenzio. Looked like there was movement, it was. Joris Krozen passed his teammate on the run into Brooklands, and Krozen back up into 13th ahead of Klaffenbach, with Rapasa now within 1 second of the 2 Haas cars as well.
Got to be careful. That overtake mode, very powerful. Of course, he'll get that through the entirety of the lap. The detection point midway through the opening corner to the Vale chicane. We see here Liam Stevens still fighting it out as Tamas Kakeni and Lucas Beisner going side by side through Stowe corner. Not a typical move, and both cars diving into the pits. That's going to be Tamas and Alejandro, and almost a moment where they were side by side, and a whole gaggle of cars making their way in. Tudor Pressacan picking up a 10-second penalty as well. But it's Tycho Hardy, along with Lucas Beisner, that stay out among Fabrizio Donoso, Conrad Bohm, and a few other drivers as well, the likes of Tronstos Santana, who are remaining to go for at least 1 more lap here.
And this is the double-edged sword, isn't it, of that overcut strategy. Yes, you get yourself a bit of a tyre offset. We'll have a significant tyre offset compared to the Haas cars and Luca Rapasa in particular, who's under pressure from Steven Varzo. Krozen, fastest lap of the race. There is the McLaren and the Alpine, very closely contested over the beam to start lap number 10. Hardy's going to have a lot of overtaking to do. I think Rapasa wide through turn 1 of Abbey, just inviting Steven Varzo to try and come through. There is Angelo D'Ortenzio behind both Haas cars. Getting stuck in is Luca Rapasa, now down the inside of Liam Stevens, who's just emerged from the pit lane as well. Rapasa keeping Varzo at bay and still looking to try and move forward.
Ties up on your screen as well, just to remind you what everybody has either started on or pit on to, as Steven Varso gets the better of Luca Rapasa in towards Brooklands. Little simple move down the inside, caught Rapasa napping, maybe just recharging that little extra bit of battery, an extra token in their quiver as they continue to make their way through. We've got 17 laps of racing to go, including this one here at the British Grand Prix for the Ventauri Pro Series. But it's still a long way to go, not even quite a half race distance yet here, Tom.
And Joris Krozen looking to try and push on there through Cox, but having it taken back by Klaffenbach. Down the inside, Conrad Bohm battling away with Fabrizio Donoso. The 2 Mercedes cars double teaming the Cadillac there, both getting through on the run down into the Vale chicane. Bohm now to P2 as Lucas Beisner is in the pit lane, but this battle royale continuing between D'Ortenzio and Stevens. Stevens looked like maybe had the run down into Stowe, but D'Ortenzio with a bit of a second wind in the second part of the Hangar Straight, keeping the Aston Martin in his back pocket as there are the 2 Silveraris battling once again. It's now Tronstos down the inside, getting the better of Bohm.
Fantastic stuff from both Mercedes. They can battle as long as it's clean, and that's going to be the message that comes across to them. They can continue to fight, they can continue to race like they are at the moment, but please no contact will be what everybody is asking. I wonder here, Tom, how much of a game Klaffenbach is playing. Are they going to be playing blocker? Are they going to be helping Krozen? Because of course they'll want to try and do well in the championship, but it looks like this is the formation they've fallen into. And at 9/10 of a second already, Angelo D'Ortenzio is going to get very frustrated if Klaffenbach doesn't get a move on in towards Brooklands and Luffield. And the Ferrari is continuing to want to look left and right. You could see the Ferrari driver just reminding Klaffenbach that he's in his mirrors. But a smooth sail for Krozen so far, not under pressure from anybody behind.
Looks like they have got slightly different ERS strategies, the 2 Haas teammates. Klaffenbach using a bit on the run down the old pit straight into Kopp's corner. You can see D'Ortenzio going with Klaffenburg, who just touches the grass on the inside of Kopp's corner, getting that front right tyre a little bit dirty, just behind Jensen Rosen, pushing Luca Rapassa down a further spot. That would have been optimistic by Angelo D'Ortenzio around the outside of Maggots. And that would have been a bit of a crazy one there for D'Ortenzio to try and make that move work. Would have been full respect handed out to the pole sitter, of course. Still applying the blowtorch to Klaffenburg, but doesn't fancy it, sliding it down the inside into Stowe corner.
We've seen it happen, though, especially from D'Ortenzio. He likes an ambitious move, has liked one in some of the feeder series coming up through the ranks as well. And as they've proven themselves in their careers so far inside of F1 Sim Racing, they sometimes like that ambitious move. Sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. Both, of course, being a learning opportunity for the drivers and the teams back at the respective factories. This time D'Ortenzio looking ever closer to Julian Klaffenbach in front as they make their way towards the opening section of corners. The first proper heavy break as he looks around the outside as they make their way on towards the Wellington straight, but it wasn't to be as Klaffenbach does get the better of the traction, but it's not over yet.
And Stevens a little bit balked as well. Might have to defend from Vaza behind D'Ortenzio. Doesn't quite have the straight line speed, but into the back of Klaffenburg, who sent spearing down the straight, just avoids the Alpine of Steven Vaza as he rejoins from the grass. Bit of a miscommunication there. It looked like D'Ortenzio into the back of Klaffenburg, ducking and weaving behind him, trying to find the space. Klaffenburg rejoins in 12th, just behind Tudor Presscan, ahead of Luca Rapassa, as they can renew their spoils from a few laps ago. D'Ortenzio now massively under pressure, though, from Stevens and from Vazo through Copps.
Going to be a very interesting Stewards inquiry. I think that we will see after this race whether they'll have much to say about it, but the race continues on. Tycho Hardy in towards pit road, and that allowed Gabor Chonstas, of course, on the hard compound of tyres to continue their way through. And Hardy will drop considerably down the order. Luca Rapassa, Julian Klaffenbach, I think, is still continuing to fall. More contact by the looks of things, as cars going off left, right and centre. Rapassa and Kokone going off at the exit of Stowe corner. I think that's going to be Klaffenbach, who's started to get a little bit aggressive there in towards that section of corners. Though it did look like we had a screen freeze on our end, so I wonder if the drivers might have had similar as well.
Gloves off now, as that is Luca Rapassa slamming through the straight line board. I think we're 3 wide into turn 1. Surely not going to work. Yes, Rapassa off the road. Bison just about keeps it within the white lines. Rapassa rejoins just in front, plays blocker ahead of the Ferrari of Bison. Kokeni still very much in this, still 3 wide again as Rapassa charges back down the inside. The squeeze employed as the Ferrari doesn't have the space on the outside. Tomasetto getting involved in the Audi. There's Tycho Hardy, who is now last place after that overcut, and now squeezed to the extremities of the inside. Rapassa again launched it in. I think that's a little bit dim-witted, I have to say. Kokeni speared off into the runoff area. Problems for Tomasetto as well, allowing Hardy and Bison to file through.
It's not the racing you want to see, is it? Especially at such a historic circuit, one that will quite literally be on the Formula 1 calendar, hopefully for many years to come, and showing, unfortunately, the, how do I put this politely, the downside sometimes of F1 sim racing, where drivers obviously forget that there is no damage, there's no downside to sending moves like that, and it's a tough way to see this race go out. Gabor Chonstas does take the lead away from Conrad Bohm, who does make their way into pit road. Fabrizio Donoso joined by Alex Santana as well, but it's hard to watch those sorts of racing. You know that it is elbows out, you know that it is drivers maybe losing their head a little bit, but it's just not the way you should race.
Good double kill for Luca Rapassa. Unfortunately, he's playing the wrong game as Gabor Chonstas, the Lone Ranger out there now, yet to pit. Alejandro Luera with the fastest lap of the race. Watch out for that Red Bull. Has a bit of a tyre offset compared to some of the drivers in front. Crozen, though. D'Ortenzio, Stevens, the net race leaders, with Vaz with a 10-second penalty, smells the opportunity. The Scarlet Ferrari smelling blood into 4. Throws it to the inside of D'Ortenzio. But Crozen under pressure from D'Ortenzio. Now going to have to throw the defensive shape down the Wellington straight. Bit of a squeeze employed, but I think the Ferrari should have the run down into Brooklands and can dispose of Joris Crozen, who now still has to deal with Liam Stevens, who's charging around the outside of Luffield.
You would have seen what happened to his teammate, Julian Klaffenbach. Joris Crozen will somewhat almost instinctively want to try and fight back. Liam Stevens not letting him have a moment of relief, though. In towards Kopp's corner and wants to get into the complex of Maggis, Beckett and Chappell. Liam Stevens almost alongside. In towards Maggis. Almost thought about a move there, but did rightly back out. Trying not to lose too much time to D'Ortenzio just in front of them. Of course, net race leader here in the moment with Chonstas still yet to pit. One of the only drivers, if the only driver, starting on the hard compound of tyre. Here comes Liam Stevens run off the road. Whether that's by his own fruition or not, he had 2 tyres on the grass. Did well to keep it pointing in the right direction. But my goodness, heart and mouth moment for Liam Stevens as Joris Krozen went for a very late defensive move, forced him onto the grass, and he does manage to make the pass.
That reactions from Stevens did really well, not to just slam into the back as Luca Rapassa retires from the race in the pit lane. But well done, Stevens, for not bulldozing Joris Krozen there with that late defensive move. Now Varzo trying to put one over on Joris Krozen as well. 10-second penalty or not, going to fight this one hard is the Alpine, trying to take third place, net third place, with Gabor Chonstos still charging along out in front, yet to pit. Pushing the Haas car through the exit of the loop and through Aintree. Liam Stevens also trying to put D'Ortenzio under a little bit more pressure. Krozen goes defensive again. It'll have to be the long way round for the Alpine of Steven Varzo. Krozen later on the brakes, and Varzo going to run out of road out there, sir.
Looking impressive up at the front, and hopefully the earlier issues have been rectified for a lot of the drivers and they're not feeling the heat of the moment anymore, which will be a very sigh of relief, I think, for a fair few of them. Of course, the drivers that were involved in that, Klaffenbach, Rapassa considerably down the order. Rapassa, of course, retiring at the end of last lap. That does leave Klaffenbach continuing to press on and shows their resilience in a situation like this, which has to be rewarded, or at least mentioned over the course of the broadcast. They haven't just called it a day in pit lane. They are continuing to battle on in this race. We do see Conrad Beaumont put under pressure by Elia Tomasetto, making their way to the exit of Chapel and down the hanger straight towards Stowe Corner. There's battles up and down this field, Thomas. It's not yet done, as we do see Gabor Chonstos in towards pit lane.
Will hand the lead on the road back over to the pole sitter, Angelo D'Ortenzio. From Stevens, from Krozen, who has the oldest tyres of anybody in this lead group. Varzo, 10-second penalty. Watch out for Rosen. Presscan very quick with a 10-second penalty as well. And then just at the back of the snake is Alejandro Luera, who did qualify much higher, but had a bit of contact in the opening couple of laps. Threw him down the order, but recovered nicely to still find themselves with an opportunity to get a very decent result. Top 7 separated by barely a couple of seconds. Throw a blanket over the 7 cars. They're so closely matched, with Tycho Hardy, the championship leader, best tyres out of anybody, charging behind them as well at a rapid rate of knots. Krozen defensive again. Varzo forced to go the long way around once more. Deja vu from the previous lap, but Varzo gets out of shape. And once again, Krozen keeping third place in his clutches.
How many times is Varzo going to try the same move, knowing that that could be the exact same result time and time again? It was, I believe, Einstein that said the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Well, that's the camp that Steven Varzo might be in at the moment as we continue on for lap 16 of 26. 10.5 laps of racing to go here at Silverstone. And up at the front 2 wanting to try and pull a gap as best they can. The front 7 train has got 2.5 seconds on Tycho Hardy, but that gap is ever decreasing. Of course, with Hardy on the better tyres, they're on 4-lap-old hard compound tyres compared to everybody else's 7, 8 or 9. They've got to use that advantage whilst they have it.
The Stevens looking like he's potentially just deciding to try and settle in now. Didn't go for the move when he had the overspeed into Stowe. Once again, hovers behind the Ferrari into the Vale chicane. So it looks like we're finding the formation between the leading duo. 2 penalties, 2 10-second penalties for speeding in the pits for Varzo and Presscan means they won't win this race, but will very much still play spoiler and will be the jokers in this lead pack. Luer already trying to put one over on Presscan just at the back of this snake. Presscan putting Rosen under pressure as well. There we are, McLaren versus Red Bull. Presscan throws the nose to the inside of Rosen, pushes the Williams slightly offline and out of kilter. Luer just finds a wall of McLaren on the exit of the loop and can't make the move work.
It's going to be a very interesting end to this race. The last 10 laps of racing that we are going to see here. The question will be who's going to win it. I think that's going to be the question on everybody's mind. Because what we're seeing here, Tycho Hardy is close half a second or so to the back of Luero in 7th place. That would extend the 7-car train all the way down to the top 12, being within a second of one another. Should we see that happen in the next few laps or so? That's pending tyre fall-off, of course. There are still a lot of variables that could happen here in the VPS race for Silverstone. This is only round 3 of the championship, so if this is a starting block, Tom, for the rest of the championship, of course we've got 9 more rounds to go. It's a 12-race calendar. I think there's going to be fireworks by the time we get to Abu Dhabi.
I think there's fireworks already, as this time Liam Stevens does go for the move under absolutely no pressure from Joris Krozen behind, who I think might be starting to struggle on his hard compound tyres with just under 10 laps remaining. Varzo P4 ahead of Rosen, Prescan and Luera. Tycho Hardy just hovering around 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds off the back of this lead group of 7. And just once Tycho Hardy can get inside the 1 second window, get that extra overtake boost mode, that blue boost mode that flashes up when you're in the 1 second window, might just be that extra bit of confidence to try and take more chunks of time out of this group. But again, you see, losing the time without it, dropping back to 2.2 seconds now. It's going to be real tough work for Hardy to get involved.
It is. We'll keep an eye on the times as they come across our leaderboard. Last time around, Hardy was, I believe, only about 0.2 of a second quicker than Alejandro. So still all to play for. It looks like they're closing the gap impeccably well. I think they're finding sectors where drivers are more competent than one another or start to make inroads considerably more than one another. We exit once again out of Woodcote Corner on towards the old pit straight, which gives us such a glimpse of history as well. If we look at the old pit buildings that once held the Formula 1 World Championship here at Silverstone before the new pit wing has been built in the early 2010s and then moved to this new start-finish line with a beautiful Hilton Hotel, I must say. On the start-finish line, we see Lucas Beisner on the back of Julian Klaffenbach trying to make waves and break firmly into that top 10 with the last few laps of racing to go here at Silverstone. It feels like the last 5 or 6 have flown by after that initial set of contact, because Luca Rapace, I believe, retired only about, 4 or 5 laps ago?
And I wonder if Tycho Hardy's just running out of ERS here, been pushing very hard to try and catch that lead group. Now comfortably over 2 seconds off the back of Luero. Championship leader needs to try and find something in the remaining 8 laps of the British Grand Prix here. We'll pick up a couple of freebies courtesy of the penalties for Varzo and for Pressacan. But does Tycho Hardy have the pace on the fresh tyres to get themselves back into this race after going for a very long overcut? I think has got maybe 6 lap fresher tyres than some of these drivers. Joris Krozen with the oldest tyres pitted on, I believe, lap 7. And I think Tycho Hardy was in around lap 12 or 13, so just bear that one in mind. Yeah, 6 laps for Tycho Hardy, 11 laps for Krozen, 10 for Varzo. As here comes the pole sitter D'Ortenzio, and that looked fairly straightforward down the inside. Didn't even need the braking zone of Brooklands to take the lead back from Liam Stevens.
Simply elementary for Angelo D'Ortenzio as they made their way in towards Luffield. And once again, through Woodcote Corner, the old pit straight, the beautiful helicopter shots that we get here inside of F125. And if we manage to keep these inside of F127, I'll be a very happy man, because the helicopter shots quite possibly are the best thing on board of this game. That and the curb shots that we get on a very rare occasion. They are some of the best camera angles that we do get to see. As we make our way through Maggis, Beckett's and Chapel once again, we'll keep an eye on the front runners and keep an eye on that time on the left-hand side, as we do see that start to creep ever closer between D'Ortenzio and Stevens. But again, just capping off at that 1.5 tenths mark in towards Stowe Corners. Battles further back as Conrad Bone does get the better of Larry Tukey. Donoso gets the better of Widler as well for 13th place, looking towards the inside as the Audi does come back at them once again. So this quartet of drivers once again involved in a quabble. And the question will be, over the next 7 laps of racing, can they hold on to what they have here?
Just outside the top 10 there, Bohm, Tulke, Vidler and Donoso. Chonstos catching them on fresher tyres as well down in P15. Last of the point scorers. Is that Luera to the inside? Yes, it is. On to the Presscan. Can the Red Bull finally muscle their way past the McLaren? Turns to the outside of turn number 4. Has to be brave. Has to be a bit lively with the loud pedals. Still side by side. Keeping his foot in it. Pinned around the outside of Aintree. Should have the little bit of a better run down the Wellington straight. Who's going to be last of the late breakers into Brooklands? Still just keeping a nose in it is Luera, trying to find a foothold, keep himself in it to force his way past Tudor Pressacan. Battle for 6th and 7th out of Luffield. Little bit of contact, not once but twice. Tyres banging as they come through Luffield Corner. And still Luero through Woodcote, not going to give this one up. Pressacan desperate to hold on outside of Copse Corner, and there's the contact. Hamilton Verstappen star from 2021, and it's the McLaren that comes off second best and ends up in the runoff.
Exact same situation. Outside car was the one that paid the consequence of that. Donoso does get past Victor for 13th place on circuit, slightly further down the order as well. So 2 new teams in Formula 1, Cadillac and Audi, battling out with a well-established outfit in Red Bull Racing. But up at the front is again Liam Stevens, who's now teetering under that 1/10th mark. We get closer towards race end. The question's going to be, as we approach that illustrious lap 26, who's going to want to be in what position? Will they want that overtake mode for the final lap? The answer is almost certainly yes. They're going to have to try and do some mental maths to try and figure that one out, because at the moment D'Ortenzio will have a game plan in mind as to where they want to be, and they are the leading engine.
6 tours remaining of the Silverstone circuit. Is this just a 2-horse race between D'Ortenzio and Stevens? The top 3 that we've got at the moment were the top 3 that crossed the line a week ago in China, albeit Crozen was ahead of Stevens, but Stevens with a post-race penalty was pushed back down the order. And you think with the tyre advantage that D'Ortenzio and Stevens have over Crozen, they should be able just to keep that Haas car at arm's length if indeed there is a little bit of trouble and they fight a bit hard, and just bring Crozen back into the fray. Wobble you could just see in the background midway through Luffield for Steven Varzo. Jensen Rosen just clinging on at the back of this leading quintet, with Luero a further second back down the road, and Tycho Hardy's chances of trying to get into this fight just evaporating now as he's got to deal with Tudor Pressakan in the battle for 7th and 8th.
That's the question, isn't it? Tudor now 3.5, or heading towards 3.5 seconds off the back of this pack, and this is Tycho Hardy trying to scrap it out in towards Maggots, and Beckett does so. Through comes Lucas Beisner as well, taking advantage of the McLaren that seemed a little bit stranded through Beckett's corner, and Julian Klaffenbach wants a piece of the action as well. In towards Stowe they go. 2 wide for the majority, looking to go 3 wide. As we ride on board with Presscan, Thrall goes the outside on Klaffenbach. Hardy tries to hold the place. Klaffenbach has to slot in behind, knowing he can't take advantage. But down the inside, Conrad Bohm out of nowhere for the Mercedes outfit has to hold the outside through club corner. Can't do so, as it's going to be Tudor Presscan that thought they could hold on. Couldn't though. Donoso goes through, and a day that has gone from bad to worse for Tudor here.
And I think there may have been a little bit of contact between Pressakan and Hardy, which put Pressakan on the back foot on the run down the hanger straight. Now a couple more places lost. Vidler in the Audi through. Gabor Chonstos and brand new tyres in the Mercedes through as well. Contact though between the Audi and the Mercedes on the run up towards Aintree Corner. Pressakan falls off the road again in the background in 14th. We return to the leaders with the top 4 still separated by just under 1 second. Crozen with a bit of a slide coming out of Luffield. Jensen Rosen needs a bit of magic in these final few laps. If that Williams is holding something back, needs to start making moves ASAP. And Crozen, have to say, still looking fairly strong despite the tyre disadvantage the Haas has got.
Looking absolutely strong as we make our way into the closing stages of this race. You mentioned earlier 4.5 to go as we make our way to the exit of the 3rd and final sector for lap 22 of 26. The British Grand Prix, and Crozen again will have that game plan in mind, knowing where they want to be at the end of maybe lap 25, maybe the end of lap 24 as well, if they're thinking that far ahead. The engineers will have had almost a lap-by-lap play in the back of their minds, knowing how they want to handle this until the checkered flag flies, and we'll see that in just about 4 laps' time. But the front 4 continuing to break away. Rosen is doing everything in their power to hold on to this front quartet as Tudor Presscan gets a 10-second penalty for speeding in pit road. So both McLarens retiring early from this race. Zach Brown having a bit of a panic attack, almost certainly back in hospitality, as both of his drivers not making it any further than lap 22.
Andrea Stella's just on the biggest sigh you've ever heard. On the pit wall there. Not good for Rapassa, not good for Presscan. No points heading to Woking. Got to be careful if you're Liam Stevens, because you are definitely under the microscope from Joris Crozen. Just moves over a little bit to try and defend from any potential late lunges down the inside into Brooklands from the Haas car just behind. Steven Varzo still able to play spoiler in this little game with the 10-second penalty. He'll want to try and get his skates on and hope that things kick off behind so that he can maybe nab a couple of points despite that 10-second penalty looming over his head. Rosen still clinging on. Luero still clinging on in the background as well. You think those two are out of contention. Looks like it's this 3 that were battling a week ago in China that will take it right to the end once again. And Stevens a little bit wobbly through Beckett's, maybe on the back foot now.
Trying to do some mental maths in my head. Varso is going to drop considerably down the order, if not closer towards kind of 14th or 15th place. The likes of Tamas Kokene down in 15th at the moment for the Cadillac outfit, but the front 3 are the ones that we are trying to keep a focus on as best we can. D'Ortenzio, Stevens, Crozen, as you said, the drivers that were battling so hard and so fast last time out in China, and I'm almost assured that we will see a very similar endeavour over the next few weeks as we continue to parade through the opening season calendar for the Ventauri Pro Series. But Joris Crozen on the back of Liam Stevens, continuing to put pressure on as we enter into the final few laps of racing. Final 3 here at Silverstone.
Little look for Crozen down the inside, wasn't it, into Village. Didn't help, nothing came of it, but just trying to stamp a marker down to Stevens and to D'Ortenzio there as well. Stevens recharging down the Wellington straight. Does he open the door for Crozen to throw it around the outside? Doesn't have the overspeed, doesn't have the overlap, but definitely Crozen just planting a couple of thoughts and a couple of prayers maybe in the back of Liam Stevens' mind as he has to keep his wits about him, think about the Ferrari that he's chasing in front, but also be careful of the Haas car that's charging behind him as well.
It's a game of two attacks, isn't it? You want to try and attack the driver in front, but you've also got to hand off the defence or hand off the attack that is coming away from the driver behind you. It's a game of attack and defence. It's like any, I was going to say contact sport. You remember motorsport is officially a no contact sport. Although I think a few spectators might differ or beg to differ after seeing the endeavours of today. Julian Klaffenbach does get the better of Conrad Bohm as we run up towards Stoke Corner. Here comes Liam Stevens. Thought about it for half a second, was in the mirrors of Angelo Tortenzio. Be round in towards the Vale chicane. Front four still unchanged, lap after lap. But again, I think as we enter the final 2 laps of racing here, Tom, this could all change. Each way, each driver is going to be wanting to do something different.
And it's always difficult, isn't it, when you are in the middle? As that's Fabrizio Donoso off the road, rejoins. I think that's an unsafe rejoin. Bit of contact with Conrad Bohm, I think it was. And now dropping it, coming out of the final corner, is Fabrizio Donoso through club. And tumbling back down behind his teammate, Fabrizio Donoso drops behind Kokeni. And that is a chance of a decent haul of points thrown away. I think that battle was between themselves and Klaffenbach, maybe just giving a helping hand off the road through the Vale chicane. But we return to the leading contenders, heading up towards Brooklands and Luffield for the penultimate time. Ferrari, Aston Martin, Haas, and then the Alpine. Crozen a little bit wide through Brooklands as Donoso retires. Tomasetto pitted on the previous lap, maybe looking to pick up a fastest lap just to add to his tally. Rosen and Luero still there. I think Rosen might be coming under pressure from Luero in this final lap and a half. But who are the money? Who's your money on? Is it Tortenzio? Is it Stevens? Is it going to be Crozen?
It's so close to call. I think Tortenzio, we know, has that defensive capability. I think Stevens is one of those drivers that knows that when they can send a move, but the question is going to be, do they know not when to send a move? Crozen, on the other hand, has experience in F1 Sim Racing World Championships. Are they going to be able to try and come up with some magic here as we head on to the final lap of racing?
Incredibly tight, close quarters racing at the moment. Liam Stevens slightly wide through Stowe. Don't want to present an opportunity to Joris Crozen to slide it on through. You're thinking about trying to win the race. You're also thinking about trying not to lose second place. Crozen a little bit of a slide. Coming out of the Vale chicane, had to catch it a couple of times as the back of the car not playing ball. Rosen under pressure as well from Luero, but they fly through Albion Farm for the last time. Still Tortenzio with everything under control, but everything can still change on this last tour.
Looking close in towards the opening sector. Here comes Crozen, thinking about a dive down the inside. They make their way through the loop and out through on towards the Wellington Straight. Couldn't quite get the traction this time around, but it doesn't mean that's their only opportunity to try and send a move. Weaving starts from Tortenzio, trying to break whatever slipstream they possibly can in towards the Luffield Brooklands complex. And on towards the old back straight. The question's going to be now, what does Tortenzio have up his sleeve? Because he'll know the key overtaking spot, the run in towards Stoke Corner, will be critical now.
And Tortenzio go back-to-back pole positions. Will it be back-to-back race wins for the Scarlet Ferrari? Tomasetto with the fastest lap of the race, but down in P16. Won't trouble the scorers too much. Crozen just a tenth off the back of Stevens, burning battery. All three of them on the run into Maggots, Beckes and Chapel for the last time. Steven Varzo, now a distant thought in the back of the mind of Crozen. Doesn't need to worry about it one bit. Tortenzio all over the road, trying to break the toe, trying to break the slipstream. For the time being, the Ferrari looks to have everything under control. Crozen with no battery left. It'll be Tortenzio, or it'll be a late lunge from Stevens into the Vale chicane. But it's going to be double trouble for everybody else. Really late braking move is Stevens into the Vale chicane. Was way too far back, never going to work. But Tortenzio wins in China, and he wins the British Grand Prix as well. It's back-to-back for Angelo Tortenzio. Stevens and Crozen once again completing the podium. We had a Rosen who holds off Alejandro Luero. Championship leader beforehand, Tycho Hardy in P6. I think Tortenzio will steal that away from the Racing Bulls, as Steven Varzo does stay inside the top 10 just ahead of Larry Tulke.
What an achievement from themselves. Gabor Chonstos retires in pit road, and I think themselves and Alex Santana had a moment on the run down the hanger straight towards Stoke Corner, rather. And we did see that on the track map, both cars coming to almost a practical stop and yellow flags being waved. You do see Elia Tomasetto coming around the final corner. Now they did find the fastest lap of the race, a 1:27.142 on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. And that will see them pick up the fastest lap of the race. But it will be, as you mentioned earlier, this man, Angelo Tortenzio. It's his sister who qualified. It was himself that gets the race win. A back-to-back for themselves.
Superb driver swap there. Angelo hands over to Angelo for the race. and does a very, very good job. Winner in China, winner in Silverstone as well. Impressive drive, yeah, from Alejandro Luero, from being last, it was, yeah, Yona, at the end of lap 1 to come through and finish in P5, I think it was, once penalties were applied. Really strong recovery drive from the Red Bull man. Joris Kroesen and Liam Stevens just falling short. I think that was Lucas Beisner taking a hell of a lot of the awards there. Yes, driver of the day, most overtakes and cleanest driver for Beisner, with Tomasetto fastest lap, which we saw, and D'Ortenzio with yet another race win from pole. Good drive from Stevens from P5 to P2. Joris Kroesen in third. Rosen, Luero, Hardy, Beisner from 16th to 7th. Klaffenborg, Vidler from 20th to 9th, and Steven Vaza with a penalty just inside the top 10.
Fantastic work. It's Larry Tilke, Cockney, Bohm, Santana, Tomasetto, Charles Dawson, Fabrizio Donoso, your classified finishers here this afternoon. Both McLarens of Tudor Prescan and Luca Rapassa DNFing, along with Nelson Alves and Stakulek as well, right early on after only a few laps of racing. But again, VPS never seems to disappoint here at the moment. The Silverstone Grand Prix was certainly no exception.
Yeah, really exciting stuff once again. Maybe not the grandstand finish we were potentially hoping for, because Angelo D'Ortenzio pretty much had it covered. Looked like he put every single correct move on the board there, and just had Liam Stevens well and truly at arm's length for the majority of the race, and for that final lap as well, once D'Ortenzio got back into the lead after they did trade places a couple of times with about 10 laps to go. But an interesting one. Some nice battles, some less clean battles going on as well at certain points. But yeah, D'Ortenzio definitely laying down a marker after missing round number 1. Back-to-back victories. Definitely the man to beat.
Absolutely, and I think has a bit of a target on his back now as we head into, approach halfway through the calendar, because that's going to be the middle point for, I think, a lot of these drivers. They'll be aiming to keep an eye on things as they make their way through, and once they hit that point, they'll know how to line up to the graphics, the calendar, and the
don't need to worry about the graphics.
They don't need to worry about the graphics. That's my problem, unfortunately. But they'll know how the standings line up and who the real title contenders are going to be in this series, because it is about consistency.
Absolutely, yeah, and consistency is going to be key. And Tycho Hardy, after having a bit of an off day, didn't get the strategy quite right, went for that big overcut, didn't have the speed to try and get that time back. Still coming through for, I think it was P6 in the end for Tycho Hardy, which is still a very decent haul of points to keep yourself in the championship battle. And that's the difference, because Luca Rapassa, who was second, only a couple of points back, didn't see the checkered flag. And that's how quickly things can change when you do have an off week.
Absolutely. And speaking of off week, should we have a quick look at how the calendar rounds out for the rest of the season? After today's visit to Silverstone, we've of course had now 3 rounds of the calendar gone. We've been to all Australia, China, and now Great Britain. Just one more week before the first break for our drivers, where we head to the Red Bull Ring and the Styrian Hills, which will be a fantastic adventure in 1 week's time.
It will. And then we have a break. We have a week off in between Austria and Japan. Japan, of course. Suzuka for round number 5. Then comes Spa, Sakir at Bahrain, and the Circuit of the Americas in Texas before our second break week. And then a final quartet of races to round out the calendar. Jeddah, which both of us are very much looking forward to. That's going to be carnage. Mexico City, Brazil, and then Abu Dhabi. Some, what was it? Abu Dhabi do, Fred Flintstone style, to round us out for season 1.
Absolutely right. And we have got one driver who is coming to join us for a bit of a chat. We have got Jensen Rosen, who had a great drive, started P9, finished P4, and we'll have a quick chat and see how they went. Jensen, first and foremost, welcome in. How did that race go for yourself? You were just shy of a podium at the end there, but I think with all the carnage and the chaos that went on, that has to be looked at somewhat as a positive result, points as points.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, P9 to P4, I can't really complain. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just passively gaining positions from people just dying ahead. Yeah, I mean, pace was, especially on the first stint, pretty good. On the second stint, I struggled to stay with Steven, even though he had older tyres than me. His pace was just really good, and I don't know, maybe my battery management wasn't ideal. But yeah, everything went well. Strategy was really good. Obviously, I got a bit lucky that Steven had that 10-second, otherwise he definitely would have undercut me and beaten me on that undercut. So yeah, lucky to him, his pace was really good. Yeah.
What was the plan of action with the strategy? Because we're seeing how strong the undercut is. Obviously, the two Haas guys started on soft tyres, and Joris Kroesen was still right in there in the thick of the battle come the end of the Grand Prix. So what is that like? Is it a little bit of trying to think on your feet when you see one person go, try not to react too slowly to what everybody else is doing?
Yeah, exactly. We didn't want to just react to one person or anything. And I think, yeah, the undercut was obviously really strong. I was kind of expecting Steven and Joris to fall off a bit more, and I think that's me and my engineer were expecting that, but yeah, it didn't happen. So I don't know. I suppose undercut is very powerful. I suppose, yeah, it's just around this track, the pace, like drop off on the as the tires wear is very small, because we were consistently doing like 29s. And I think my fastest lap was like 29.1, so we were consistently like within a second of our fastest lap. So the tire drop off was like on the hards. There wasn't really any tire drop off. So that's probably why the undercut was so strong. Because yeah, in terms of pace, there was just barely any loss for them. Which I didn't realize and kind of didn't expect. So it is what it is. But yeah, as long as we learn and yeah, move forward with that info.
Okay.
I've got no more questions apart from just a fantastic race from yourself, and yeah, should be proud of some good points for you.
Thanks.
Cool. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Jensen, and we'll see you hopefully next week in Austria.
Yeah, thank you. See you in a bit.
Perfecto. Thank you, Jensen. Nobody else is wanting to have a chat with us.
And that's okay. That's their loss at the end of the day.
That's their loss. You don't get the opportunity to have a chat with the two of us and discuss the goings on. No. Alas, though, we will move on with our lives, and I'm sure everybody else will as well.
We shall indeed. It's been a great race. I look forward to Austria next week. I'm even more looking forward to the break week in 2 weeks' time. I'll be completely honest.
Austria is going to be an interesting one. I've always described it as a glorified go-kart track.
Yeah.
It's a circuit that, no matter what happens, I think 99% of the time, along with somewhere like Interlagos, you're always going to get something kicking off. And I'm interested to see, because I haven't done a league race around Austria yet, what it's going to be like with the battery management, because I think there's obviously a lot of straights and a lot of places where you are deploying it, but you have got the heavy braking zones as well when you can bring it back. And you've got the middle sector too, where once you get up towards turn 6 and 7, I think it is, you can just start to back it off and recharge.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the key point where a lot of drivers do find that recharge, that double left hand in the middle sector, and obviously straight back on the power for turn 8 and into the final turn 9 and 10, where you can lift a little bit, but you don't want to because it's a very fast and flowing circuit. So we will see how the drivers adapt as we overcome that next week.
We will indeed, but that is just about everything from us for round number 3. Thank you, everybody who's joined us on this Tuesday evening, or whatever time it is, wherever you are on the glorious globe that is Earth. And yeah, thank you for hanging out and seeing some good battles once again at Silverstone. Before we go, TK, Tom Squared invading every single place you can imagine. Where can people find you on an internet if they want to see what you're up to?
They call me TK pretty much every single social media. Drop us a follow, why not? And yeah, keep up to date with everything that's going on. Tom, where can they find yourself?
You can find me at wilker.coms on Instagram and TikTok. Make sure you follow the Ventauri Pro Series and the Ventauri accounts as well on all of the social medias, including the YouTube that we're currently on. Make sure you subscribe. How many have we got at the moment? 421, if I read that correctly, and it's updated. But thank you for watching. We'll be back in a week's time for the Red Bull Ring. And can anybody stop the runaway train that is the prancing horse of Angelo D'Ortenzio? We'll find out in 7 days' time. But until then, we'll see you soon.